Welcome back, everybody, to a hot bro summer. We are here at Bushiroad Rumble Online 2023 Standard. Flex it, sun's out, guns out. And we are here today with day 2 of the Standard Tournament for the NA side of things. I am joined by my lovely co-commentators, Outer Orange, as well as TIE Fighter. You already know me. I am Toku, aka Tony from Yellowcard TCG, but Orange, introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Outer Orange, and I'm back. Very excited to be here with y'all today. So it's a very exciting day. We got top 8 going on. Very, very hype. But other than that, also got TIE Fighter over here. Introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, TIE Fighter here, or just TIE, whatever you want to call me, as long as I know you're talking to or about me. Yeah, no, very excited to be here. We had a very fun time yesterday going through our 8 rounds of Swiss, and now today we've got our top 8 for you all today. Gonna see 8 of them duking it out. See who's going to be crowned our final champion of the weekend for this summer standard BRO 2023.
Alrighty, thank you so much, everyone. So just to quickly wrap things up again and summarize as we get into the day 2 and the thick of things, BRO is Bushiroad Rumble Online, and basically it is just an online tournament that Bushiroad has made. So Ty, why don't you tell us about the structure of the weekend that we have?
Alrighty, so like I mentioned, we did have yesterday our 8 rounds of Swiss, and today we are going to be going into our top 8 rounds. Are best of 1. So if you've ever done one of these BROs before, you've been to a Spring Fest or a BCS, should be very, very familiar to you. Coming up later on in the year, we'll also have premium for you as well. But now we'll go ahead and take a look at our prizing, and I'll have Orange take it away from there.
Awesome. That is correct. We have the prizing. So if you are in 4th place, you get a certificate. But if you are in 3rd place, you get the winner's promo of the Chrono Jet and a booster box and a certificate. And if you are even better than that and you get 2nd place, you will get 2 of the winner's promos for Chrono Jet and then also a booster box and a certificate. And if you are even better and you take the 1st place, you won it all, you took it all the way, you get 4 of the promo, and also of the winner's promo, the Chrono Jet. You get 4 a whole play set, and then you also get the booster box and the certificate as well. And that is the prizing. And other than that, we also have we got the format video as well to talk about.
All right, thank you so much for the explanations, everyone. But yeah, just like what Orange said, Bushiroad did quickly give us a video to give you a good understanding of the standard format, just so that way you understand what our top 8 players will be playing today and can understand what is going on through their heads. Let's run the clip and show you what the format is all about.
Cardfight Vanguard is a 2-player card game where you take on the role of a Vanguard and lead your ally units in a battle to victory. This video will explain the rules of Cardfight Vanguard. First, we have the types of cards. Vanguard can be divided into 2 different types of cards. Unit cards have power and shield values and can be called to the field. Order cards are a variety of commands that use strategies, items, or magic. Each type of card has different information written on them. First, let's take a look at unit cards. There are 2 types of unit cards. First, we have normal units. Normal units are the basic units that are called to the field to battle. Let's learn more about the 4 numbers written on the card. Grade, the level of strength of a card. Power, the attack power of a card. This value is used when it battles. Shield, the defense power a card has when it guards its allies. Critical, the amount of damage a card can deal to your opponent. Some unit cards have an icon at the top right corner and are known as trigger units. Trigger units can not only be called to the field to battle, but also activate unique effects when revealed for trigger checks. Next, we have order cards. Order cards do not have any power or shield values, but have various powerful abilities instead. Different cards have different abilities and activation timings. Some are used during your turn, while others are used in your opponent's turn. Preparing your deck. Let's prepare a deck to be used for the card fight. A deck can be constructed with a total of 50 cards, including 16 trigger units. Up to 4 copies of each card can be used. Choose 4 unit cards from your deck consisting of one of each, grade 0, 1, 2, and 3 to be used as your ride deck. Win condition. Attack and guard repeatedly, and the first to deal 6 damage to their opponent wins. Card fight setup. Let's take a look at the playmat where the card fight takes place. There are 3 types of circles where you can place your unit cards on the field. Vanguard circle. The unit placed here is called the Vanguard. Stack units on top when you ride. Rearguard circle. The unit placed here is called the Rearguard. Place units here when you call. Guardian circle. Place units here when calling them to guard. The areas around your field include your deck, ride deck, drop zone where you put used cards, order zone, and damage zone where you put your damage. Place the grade 0 card from the ride deck you had prepared face down on the Vanguard circle. Place the remaining 3 cards face down in the ride deck area. Shuffle each other's main deck and place it in the deck area. Decide who goes first with a game of rock, paper, scissors. The winner will go first. Each player draws 5 cards from the deck. You may swap cards once at this point. The player going first returns the cards they want to change to the bottom of their deck and draws the same number. Shuffle the deck if you swap cards. The player going second then does the same. Now that we're done preparing, with Stand Up Vanguard, turn the card on the Vanguard circle face up to begin. In Vanguard, there are 6 phases each turn. Let's learn more about each of the phases. Stand phase. Stand phase happens at the beginning of your turn. Vertical cards are in stand. Horizontal cards are in rest. Stand all of the resting cards on your side of the field. There are no resting cards on your first turn, so you can proceed to draw phase straight away. Draw phase. Draw a card from the top of the deck during your draw phase. Ride phase. To ride is to stack cards on your Vanguard to increase its grade. You can only ride once per turn. You can ride a unit from your hand, or discard a card to ride a unit from the ride deck that you had prepared that is 1 grade greater than the Vanguard currently on your field. The cards placed underneath your Vanguard after riding are known as the Soul and can be used to pay for costs of abilities. Main phase. During your main phase, you can call or move rear guards, use a card's ability, and use an order card. Calling or moving a rear guard. You can call a unit from your hand with a grade less than or equal to your Vanguard to any rear guard circle. Rear guards can move between the front and back of a column. Positions can be swapped within the same column too. Moving or swapping positions horizontally is not allowed. Battle phase. You can attack your opponent's front row units with your front row units during your battle phase. Rest the unit when it attacks. If the power of the attacking unit is greater than or equal to the power of the unit being attacked, the attack hits. If the attack hit a Vanguard, your opponent takes damage. If the attack hit a rear guard, put that rear guard into the drop zone. Let's attack your opponent's Vanguard with your Vanguard. When you attack with a Vanguard, you perform a drive check. To drive check is to put the top card of your deck into the trigger check zone face up. If a trigger unit was revealed, various effects are activated. Cards revealed for drive checks are added to your hand. Drive check, and get a critical trigger. It has the effect of +1 critical, and the effect of +10,000 power. You may choose to give each of these effects to a different unit. Let's give the critical to your Vanguard and the 10,000 power to your rear guard. As the attack was successful, your opponent takes 2 damage. When an attack hits, the other player performs a damage check. Put the top card of your deck into the trigger check zone face up, then put it into your damage zone. If a trigger unit was revealed, various effects are activated as well. Damage check. First check, no trigger. Put the card that was revealed into your damage zone. Second check, got a draw trigger. A draw trigger has the effect of draw a card and the effect of +10,000 power. Draw a card and add 10,000 power to your Vanguard. Next, let's attack your opponent's Vanguard with your rear guard. By resting a unit with the boost icon behind the attacking unit, the power of the unit behind gets added to the attacking unit. Attack the Vanguard with 26,000 power. Guard. When you're attacked, you can defend your units by guarding. To guard, choose any number of cards from your hand and call them to the Guardian Circle as rest. The power of the unit being attacked is increased by the shield of the units you called. If your Vanguard's power is greater than your opponent's attacking unit, the guard is successful. The power increased from guarding only lasts until the end of that battle. Once that attack ends, the power of the defended unit returns to its original value, and the units on the Guardian Circle are put into the drop zone. Let's aim to win by attacking and guarding repeatedly and dealing 6 damage to your opponent. End phase. This marks the end of your turn, and it is now your opponent's turn. This also concludes the description of each phase. Various abilities. Cards have various abilities in Vanguard. First, there's Persona Ride. It activates when you ride a unit with the Persona Ride icon from your hand on a card with the same card name. Draw a card when you Persona Ride. And for this turn, units in your front row get plus 10,000 power. Next, there's Intercept. When you are guarding, you can move rear guards in your front row with the Intercept icon to the Guardian Circle to guard. You can both intercept and guard with cards from your hand. It's a successful guard of 23,000 power. Put the units on the Guardian Circle into your drop zone when the attack ends. Twin Drive. Units with the Twin Drive ability can perform drive checks twice. When you attack with this Vanguard, perform 2 drive checks, as it has Twin Drive. First check. Second check. Got it! Over Trigger! An Over Trigger is a powerful trigger, and your deck can only have one such trigger. Give 100 million power to any unit, and draw a card. If it's revealed during drive check, more effects can be triggered. Sometimes, costs must be paid to activate the card's abilities. First, there's Counterblast. Activate an ability by turning a specified number of cards in your damage zone face down. Next, Soul Blast. Activate an ability by putting a specified number of cards from your soul into the drop zone. Make full use of various abilities to be victorious in a card fight. This concludes the explanation of rules in Vanguard. Enjoy the world of Vanguard with a deck of your own.
Thank you so much, Bushiroad, for that very informative video on how to play Standard as it is right now. So yesterday, we went through 8 grueling rounds of Swiss, and we now have our top 8 to present to you today. So let's go ahead and take a look at our contestants who will be fighting for that coveted Chronojet to Promo prize. Orange, why don't I have you take it from the top 4 for us?
Sure, we have Mana! That's our first pick. And then we have, versing Thomas Quinn. And then we have Nomad versing Casey Alex 2. And then TIE Fighter, if you want to do the other 2.
Alrighty, so after that we have Derek Dow, a very familiar name to a lot of us, I'm sure, going up against Kai. And then lastly, we have Zetsue going against Sri, 2 people that we saw on stream yesterday, actually. So very good to see them back here as well, and wishing them all the luck going through these final rounds in top 8.
I'm very excited to see what kind of decks each contestant will be bringing to us today. So we already know, we already saw a lot of statistics over on Fuzzy side of things. 5 Duelistas, 2 Gandivas, 1 single Zorga. Orange, I know that you have some strong feelings about this Zorga right now. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. We already know what Duelista does. We've seen it all in action yesterday. We know about Gandiva. We saw that all in action, though not as strong as Duelista that we saw. Tell me, how do you think this Zorga made it through? What does this Zorga need to do against the 2 big powerhouses of the format to take that big #1 prize in the 4 Chronojet promos?
I think the Zorga player is gonna have to see those dragons like as soon as possible. You're basically gonna want to see dragons. You're gonna want to see the Zorga mask. You're gonna want to see like stuff pretty fast because the deck starts kind of falling off as the game gets later and later. As we talked about a little bit yesterday, how the scaling of Zorga kind of stops at some point. When meanwhile Gandiva will just kind of keep going and going in terms of like power scaling. So with that being said, I think that's like the best thing is as long as the Zorga starts opening up like the good stuff. Yeah, they have a chance. The double crit is not a joke. The double crit on both sides. There's like a 20k front between the Zorka and the Persona ride, and then they also get 10k power on their own. Then you have the Keel multi attacking. You got the tree marker trees, the dragon tree markers on the board that also gain extra power. So it gets very. The numbers get huge, and you can only guard so much early on. But as the game gets later, both decks, both Gandiva and Ballista, will start farming hand and have an easier time into Zorga.
All right, and so. Luckily, we did see a lot of like strong Williston play yesterday. We got to like experience what Williston does when it pops up. We haven't had a chance to really see Gandiva perform on the big stage yet. Ty, what do you know about Gandiva and what does that deck look to do to kind of like try and ring the games by storm?
So we saw a little bit of Gandiva yesterday. Very strong deck. I think Orange put it best yesterday when she said it was a monster of a deck, which is exactly what we saw. We saw a lot of people try and just push Gandiva very early, but I think a lot of that deck strength comes in just how much its late game scales, just how much once you get onto Gandiva, you start popping a lot of things on your opponent's board. You start drawing a bunch of cards. Your bind zone gets bigger and bigger. Therefore, your board gets bigger and bigger. Having the access to multi-attack. Really, it's just one of those. It's definitely one of the defining forces of our format right now. Although it seems like maybe that might be scaled back a peg now that we've seen Willista come into the format too. So going to be very interesting to see how this top 8 shakes out for us.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first deck that we will be showcasing for you guys today on BRO 2023. So running it off from the top, we have Meta once again playing that Willista deck that we saw piloted so well in that final round of Swiss yesterday. That one of Rhesus in combination with Ophelia to get that restand, getting use of that 10k twice is the big difference between this Willista deck and other Willista decks we've seen. Now, Orange, I believe that you have more expertise in this deck, so I'm going to have you ramble on a bit more about what else the deck looks to do.
So the deck usually wants to just bounce a bunch of its rears while also recalling, doing the restand, drawing a ton with the grade 1 gem. Something I do want to highlight about this deck in particular, they're actually running 4 of the regular heals over the crit heals or any of the other heals. And I actually think that is actually pretty correct. The only matchup you really want to kind of be weary of is like obviously Gandiva and Zorga. But outside of those matchups, you can actually purely run the vanilla heals. And I think that 15k shield comes up a lot more than people may think. Aside from that, this is a very standard list. The only difference here is really the Reese's. And they just basically took out one Uica for it. And I think this is also really well done. The Reese's does come up a lot. So overall, if you guys don't know, you can put 10k on Ophelias, you can put 10ks on restanding targets and then have that extra power off of them. The Cycler comes a lot in handy here as well to be able to on ride, basically draw more cards, get more gems back to hand, and not lose your hand as much. So that's kind of sort of where the deck stands and why it's one of the best decks in the format right now.
A perfect explanation from Orange. Thank you so much. So another scene Willista deck, but let's see what the next deck will be. Let's bring up the next deck, please. It is going to be the one, the only Derek Dow on Does That Fool My Eyes, or is that Willista? That sure looks like a Willista to me. Now, there's a few interesting different cards here. One of them is the lack of Rhesus, opting to run a 4th copy of the Ramona just for an extra bigger 20k attacker. What do you think are the implications of not having that 4th Uica or the 4th Rhesus or the first Rhesus, and instead going for that 4th copy of the Ramona? Ty, give me your thoughts on this list that we see here.
Honestly, going for something that opting for more things that just are big beaters, big power, definitely just speaks to my sensibilities in deck building. And I feel like that's just going to just kind of maximize on those big power swings. We saw it yesterday, just how much of a monster the Ophelia is. So I think for me, whenever I'm building decks, having more cards kind of back up to kind of supplement the game plan of like, oh hey, let's have maybe it doesn't do as much, but you still have the power to kind of lean back up, some redundancy in your game plan, something that I'm a very big fan of, and I feel like we're probably going to see that come through just to get bigger swings earlier.
Right, perfect. Thank you so much for that explanation. So we've seen 2 ballistas now. What will be the third deck for us today? It's Ballista. Whoa! Now, there's one major difference here that I've noticed immediately between the 2 other decks, and that is the choice of running the red overtrigger as opposed to the blue overtrigger, coming from the latest Festival Collection set. So to really remind everyone, the blue overtrigger says that when you reveal it for a drive check, you can give one of your units a critical, and then you can also recover a card from the drop zone. Whereas the red overtrigger lets you give one of your rear guards the ability to restand after its attack, and if you didn't, you could draw a card. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Outer Orange, what do you think are the explanation? What do you think are the implications of running one or the other over one another?
So the red OT is more aggressive. I think into the mirror match, the red OT is actually better because you can actually get the 6th attack out if you need to, because you can also just call a card from hand after the draw, enabling another attack. And I think that's a really big thing. Actually, from personal testing, I've actually preferred the red OT over the blue OT. The blue OT is a little less greedy though, so if you're trying to go for like a stabilized end game plan, the blue OT is better. But if you're trying to end a game faster, the red OT is better. Also, something to note between this list and Derek Dow's list is the fact that Derek Dow runs a more consistent engine, basically guaranteeing to see all pieces, whereas the first list we saw was running a little bit more like text, which means you have a lower chance of seeing cards you want to see. And this list is a little bit more consistent as well, where it's mainly running all the main stuff that you want to see, and then we have the red OT as like a backup plan.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And let's go ahead and take a look at the 4th deck. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 4th deck. Please change the deck. Oh, it has been changed. It's still Ballista once again. So I'm sure you are all experts at Ballista now, having seen the deck 4 times now. Everybody knows what each of these cards are to do. We know the ride line, we know the grade 3, we know the gem that counts as both gems. We know about the 20k attacker, we know about the cycler, and Orange did mention that because Ballista's on place does happen during the ride phase, we are able to get multiple uses of that cycler rather than just discarding for ride phase. That's Ballista. We all know it. We all love it. Questionable. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 5th deck today. It's Ballista! Whoa!
It is another Ballista. Something to note here, between all 5 decks, we are seeing a little bit of the counter heals pop up. I think 2 out of the 5 did have the counter heals, and while the rest run pure. I know it's like minor stuff, but you know, the counter heals is a difference in shield. Something to know specifically for these counter heals is the fact that into mirror matches, the people that have the counter heals are going to have a harder time guarding. And I do think that that's a big application here, because that it doesn't do anything. These counter heals do absolutely nothing into the mirror match, and that's actually the main reason why I think a lot of people ran the pure, because in case you are facing a mirror, you're going to have the better shields. Whereas if you're facing the mirror with counter heals, you're hoping you're going to see Gandiva, but then you have to think, are you going to see Gandiva? And when you have a bracket like this, guess what? You're not seeing Gandiva as much as you're seeing Ballista.
You're seeing a lot of Ballista, and hopefully let's see deck number 6. We already know that we've gone through all 5 of the Ballistas, so this won't be a Ballista, but we do get the other big dog of the format, big dragon, I might say, in Gandiva. So we all know and love Gandiva. We want to build up our bind zone across the game's duration, make it as large as possible to give our front row that extra front row buff. Then you combine that with the multitude of self-binder, self-callers that calls from the deck, so you get even more trigger compression as your Vanguard is attacking. And that way you can try and close out the game on that. We have the crit pressure from the Vanguard column. We've got large numbers from our rearguard columns. It's Gandiva. The entire package, as Ty had said it yesterday, is a well-oiled machine. Everything fits into everything. And definitely big shout outs to that order card, Best Harvest, because we are going to be harvesting some cards if our opponent lets us do so. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 7th deck today. Gandiva. Diva, but with some different cards here. One of them, mainly the Brachio, the Techie Brachio. This is an interesting card which puts on some on-hit pressure, forces your opponent to want to guard lest they lose more rear guards, and thus you get more value off of Best Harvest. What is your take on this version of the deck?
I was gonna say, like, I think the on hit pressure is actually really good. I also want to also note that they're running both counter heals. So something really funny about the restanding counter heal, it adds shield against Ophelia. Sadly, because Ophelia's number is like a perfect number, it's still sometimes a hard block, but it is a 25k shield into those Ballista matchups.
A very good insight. Now, last but not least, we know it. Deck number 8, the one, the only. It's Zorgan time. We've got Thomas Quinn on Zorga. Now, Ty, tell me about Zorga. What does this deck look to do? What does this deck need to do to beat out the army of idols and beat out the army of red dragons?
I feel like we saw it yesterday, although I think it was more of a red Zorga list we saw played yesterday. But with decks like Gandiva, decks like Willista, speed is definitely the name of the game, because especially with something like Gandiva, like we mentioned, the later the game goes on, the longer it goes, the stronger a position the Gandiva is going to be in. And some of the same goes for Willista as well. So if you are able to knock your opponent off balance in those early turns of the game, we saw full boards being called yesterday on turn 1. So I feel like that's a solid attempt to try and go, but we also saw that Gandiva was able to stabilize very, very easily as well, if given the opportunity. So you want to be fast, but also not leave yourself open to also getting your board nuked and then having your opponent plus a bunch on top of it. Going to be very, very interesting. I don't think we saw the Zorga get the win yesterday, but I'm to be completely unbiased, kind of pulling for the lone Zorga here in top 8 today.
Absolutely, myself as well. I think we talked about it greatly. Both Willista, both Gandiva have really strong scaling aspects in themselves, whereas Zorga has that big explosive grade 3 turn. And if we are able to get that mass going, I think that could be a huge game breaker in what needs to be done for this deck to get that W over these two other decks. Orange, you having played some Zorga yourself, what does this list speak out to you? Do you think the lack of mushrooms, such a huge role player card in both Flagberg that we saw yesterday, as well as Zorga that we saw yesterday, might come back to bite Thomas Quinn in the Zorga butt?
So this list is very focused on Cloak, the Shadow Cloak, which is the dog. A lot of lists tend to run Elwith because they like having the orders to hand, and I actually think that might be a little bit harder to deal with because they are running Blue Zorga, which means they have to have an order in hand if they want to Alchemy Magic every single time. It's a lot. You do have the Bull to help you there, but it is a Counterblast Soul Blast for it. So something to that I noticed here is that opting the 4/1 package. So that 5 slot right there, the dog and the Elwith, that slot right there usually is what changes a lot between list to list. Some will run 3 Elwith, 2 Cloak, some will run like a half and half, some run 2 of each, some run all Elwith and no dog at all. So because of that, like a lot of the lists tend to change, and you'll also notice like that's where a lot of the bricking tends to happen is when you start running out of orders. So hopefully in this situation, because they're dumping the orders into drop, that they don't get a little too many orders in drop, not enough orders in hand, and hopefully the Bull will be able to provide exactly what Thomas wants here. I think that'll be the biggest thing. Otherwise, everything else in here is like pretty spot on. The Bull's good. They are running the Chalice, which helps with Persona Rise in case you're having a little harder time with getting the Zorga Mask. The Chalice will come through. Resentment is an amazing card. Tearful Malice does a lot of work. The Malice at 1 is really good. Overall, I think this will be a really good list, and we're going to see some really good Zorga action even without the mushrooms being applied here.
Absolutely. I think one of the coolest things I appreciate about the Zorga Mask decks is because of the fact that Masks is also an order, being able to mask and then still kind of like activate the Alchemy Magic. It just happened to synergize very cutely. And the ability that Shadow Cloak is able to dump the mask, where it's an order that activates from the drop zone as well, there's just a bit more increased consistency in this version of a mask deck than we do see in the other ones. However, it looks like we're going to swing it back to on us, and it looks like the match should be ready soon. So we are just going to kill some more time before we do so, get things ready, get things all hyped up for you. So it looks like
our competitors are fully ready, getting the last things set into place so we can get going here.
Absolutely. So based on what we saw today, I'm sure both Ty and I, we want to see the one of kind of be featured on stream. So for us, that's the Zorga. We want to see the Zorga on stream. I think at the same time, it'd be also kind of cool to explore the narratives of the mirror match, especially in Wallista, especially in Gendiva, and kind of see how those two top dogs go against each other against themselves. However, it looks like the first round is ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and throw it to the players for you guys. And we are ready to start top 8, round 1 of Bushiroad Rumble Online 2023. Let's get going. We have Mena on Lyrical. We know that as Wallista, and Thomas Quinn on Stoikea, the one, the only Zorga. It's Zorgan time, baby. Let's get going. Are you guys ready? I'm ready.
I'm very ready.
We're all ready.
Get ready to rumble.
I see what you did there. Haha. Very exciting. I'm kind of wondering, like, if going first and going second is going to make a huge difference here, because if you can rush early on, it's going to be very convenient.
Oh, and it looks like Wallista is going to be on the play there. Going to start off the turn discarding what looks to be... I'm hoping it's a cycler, but it looks to be the dual named gem. So not going to immediately get that refund on the discard there, but we are going to discard what looks to be... Is that a mask? Correct me if I'm wrong, but that looks like a mask.
It seems like it might be.
It is a mask.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a mask there. And then now we are doing the Ranker Chain skill here to the Soul Blast, draw 2, discard another order. So they went to discard the Malice here.
Finds a heal trigger off the top, not used. And then a front trigger.
Yep. Some notes, sometimes Zorga gets a lot of orders early in hand, so sometimes you want to like get rid of all of them. I think that's what happened there. Also, Mask works from drop too, so discarding it early isn't like bad.
And the drop isn't even like a zone that's necessarily off limits to Zorga either. So
yeah,
sometimes,
exactly.
Because like I like you mentioned, you want to have orders in hand, but having them in drop isn't necessarily a bad thing either. And especially if it just kind of you can pitch for ride deck while also kind of setting yourself up somewhat too. Just kind of works hand in hand.
Yes, exactly. On the other end here with Wallista, we did just go through the usual of putting a card into Soul on ride to then get the gem back, and then using the gem here to be able to draw 2 cards, one off the gem and one off the grade 2 effect itself. And also, since that did apply, the grade 2 also has an additional 5k power, and now we're going for the little minor rush here using the Elviria as well as to apply some pressure. Also, a really good guard here using the Keel. So Keel is only active from drop. So Thomas using that there was actually really nice too. And I believe that's a 1 to pass.
1 to pass. It does pay off. No damage is going to be taken from that Vanguard swing there, but we do have that 20k coming down to try and fish out our damage. I appreciate what Thomas Quinn did here with that early guarding. We're going to have to deal with some really big numbers later as Wallista gets into their grade 3 turn. So you may as well guard while you can, because those 1-card guards will never, ever happen again.
Yeah, exactly. Now here we're opting to bring back that Malice, which is interesting since that does cost a counterblast. Sometimes you gotta be careful with like how much CB you want to use with Zorga, especially if early on you're not seeing Malice. But here we have the Shadow Cloak coming down, so now we can easily pitch whatever we need out of deck, as long as it's not the same card that's in the drop zone, and just have the Alchemagic set up here. So Thomas has the Alchemagic set up basically for the Zorga play that we'll be seeing. Now, one thing I do want to note is, do we swing to rear guards here? Because the Romana is something you want off the board. The Elviria is definitely something you want off the board this early in the game. You do not want to see the Wallista drawing like 3-4 cards on the first ride up. And right now the Elviria is like screaming to be swung at.
I absolutely agree. And if we are able to choke Mena at just 1 counterblast to play with in that upcoming grade 3 turn, they can restand with the Ophelia once. However, that will turn their one and only counterblast face down. And if they don't have ways such as Yuika to be able to bounce the Ophelia's back to hand. That also prevents Thomas Quinn another angle of being able to damage an eye for the other turn. And even if you were to Persona Ride, you would not be able to get the restand. You would not be able to get the full effects of the gem if you were to use it that turn as well. Because as we know, 2 counterblasts is what Willista wants to pop off on their 5 attack turn.
Yes, that is correct.
That's definitely the very like crucially important decisions that you make in these early stages of the game. Like you mentioned earlier too, like guarding early while you can, because as the game goes on, as the things scale up, the cards you're going to need to guard are going to just become greater and greater. So as taking advantage of early guarding as much as possible, and then also limiting your opponent with the plays they can do is also just going to extend your longevity in this game, especially if you're trying to get to a point where you can set up your own winning state. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here with these attacks.
I want to note something. We did see that Zorga mask come through, and we also saw the front here, but we saw the Zorga mask get milled out from the resentment, which is also really big because now we have access to it if we have a way to bounce it back with Shadow Cloak. So now, knowing it's in drop, Thomas now can easily just be able to perform both the Order mask effect and be able to Persona Ride and go into the Zorga mask without too much trouble. Currently, the setup is looking really good. We also saw the dragon come out, which means we do have access to 1 dragon basically for the rest of the game.
And it looks like Thomas Quinn choosing to put on a lot of pressure onto Mana, giving Mana 3 counterblasts to work with in this upcoming grade 3 turn. Not going to have the Willista in Soul to be able to get the full effects off, but that Ophelia is going to be swinging hard, and it is going to be looking to do a lot of damage here. Luckily, Thomas Quinn adds that very safe and steady 1 damage, so still have 5 to take. That is the benefits of guarding early, and then we also have the Shadow Cloak being able to intercept any early pokes as well. However, with how big Willista numbers get, a lot of times you are going to be not able to intercept for that 1 intercept to fully guard. So I am curious as to what kind of board Mana will present. It looks like the Elvira was able to stay on board as well. So the gem that will be played this turn does get to refund itself. That Elvira will start to build up a lot of advantage. And we have 2 Ophelias coming down onto the board. That is already 28k across the front row, including the 15k buff to Duelista. This is a huge number to deal with. Does Thomas Quinn have the ability to defend this turn? Let us watch. Let us find out. Getting another draw 3 off of the gem. What a crazy strong advantage. Right behind the Ophelia. We are going to be able to keep at least 1 Ophelia back in hand for the upcoming turn. And our opponent is going to start swinging now. Going to the Ophelia boosted by the Elvira. This is going to be very large. Not getting the 15k boost yet. So we are guarding here as well we can with 1 card. Very smart by Thomas Quinn. And here comes the Vanguard attack. Gonna throw down the over trigger immediately. It's gonna be an OT to pass, I believe. Finds the Sanctitude, finds no trigger. And I do want to mention, we didn't get to see any early recyclers happening now, but we did find one here. So if we get the Persona Ride, just like Orange said, we can discard that grade 2, do get the cycle out, and find ourselves a new copy of the card to get rid of some of our soul and keep it for when we need it. Find some extra card, extra pieces that are so much wanted. And here comes Ophelia swinging in again with the restand, with that extra 15k boost. It is going to be the first damage taken from Thomas Quinn in a while, and 1 last attack coming from the other side, boosted by the Yuika. Going to be able to use her skill at the end of battle to bounce that Ophelia back to hand.
I also want to note here, since both Ophelias have the extra 15k too, so that was actually some pretty big numbers as well. So just that was as we discussed before, Volista going first with like the 4 attacks with the extra 15k power to the front, and then Volista herself being a very big number. It's a lot to guard. So I think Thomas making a decision early on to guard the attacks that they could guard made it so much easier to then deal with this turn to just be able to eat all the damage. So here we have the Blue Zorga ride. So here, what's interesting about Blue Zorga, which we didn't get a chance to see as much yesterday, is we can counterblast and actually revive a card if we want to, which can become very important. Basically, your drop zone becomes a toolbox. You can grab anything you need that can help you. A good example is the Bull, which lets you get orders back to hand. You can get Elwith out to get a Dragon Tree marker going, because, fun fact, the Keel actually can't attack without a Dragon Tree marker. So being able to revive certain pieces helps here. And here we have the Zorga coming out. So we're actually going to be bouncing that Zorga to hand is what we're about to witness here. We're going to Alchemagic, and then in between Alchemagic, Shadow Cloak's ability is going to activate to be able to bounce that Zorga in the back row to then be able to perform Persona with the Mask Order.
Yeah, this is a play I don't think we actually got to see yesterday when we saw Zorga on stream. So maybe things will ideally work out a little bit better in this instance compared to yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Definitely sitting in a fairly solid position right now, especially with those very smart guards here in those early stages.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is where blue shines. We're seeing a lot of like blue is all about like resource management and setup, and that's why you sometimes have to sacrifice the mushrooms, which is what we're seeing here. But it lets you
Mhm.
stabilize, and I think stabilizing is really important, and that's why people usually tend to prefer blue over red. Red you have to discard, so you're just losing on hand like constantly, whereas blue lets you instead plus on board, and just as long as they're careful with resources, blue is like
Right.
usually very like stabling.
Which stabilization has been very much the name of the game. I feel like in a lot of the matchups we've seen, where you'll have your opponent just swinging at you. You take like a bunch of hard hits, maybe have to guard a little bit more than you want to, but being able to replenish yourself back up, manage those resources, and get yourself back in the game has been very, very crucial. Both yesterday and looking like potentially today as well.
So
And I think
something
that is basically like the name of the game right now is a lot of decks have that very timid grade 0, 1, 2, 3, grade 0s 1 and 2 turns, but once you hit that grade 3 turns, everything explodes. So whether you're on the taking side or the giving side, once you hit that grade 3 turn, that is your chance to really put pedal to the metal, use every resource that you've been given, use every counterblast you've been given to try and get all that hand back that is required to save off the next 3 turns.
Something I want to also note, so the bounce didn't happen there. I assume it was a soul issue, which actually I think is a little hurtful here because this is going
Mm.
second into Ballista. You want to like be able to push, and losing out on both the Persona ride, the draw, and just having just more soul on top of Zorga also being able to be binded or be removed from the game to just have extra cards in hand or board or whatever. So this is actually a very like slow. It was a little bit of a slower turn, and only having one dragon as well. So I'm not sure if that was enough to shred through the hand that Ballista is going to keep accumulating here.
Does not look like it, as we do see Willissa be able to find the Persona right, not choosing to discard the Cycler out, instead going to call in Ophelia out, Soul Blasting for the Willissa skill. What are we going to find off the top 5? It is going to be the one of Rhesus. Okay, so as if Pedophilia was not big enough already, it's going to have another 10k that we'll be able to swing twice on. And it looks like a Yuika going to be you boosting the Yuika there. So whether or not that Yuika ends up boosting that Yuika or being played over for another Ophelia, maybe for the copy of that, maybe a copy of that Cycler to be able to give another 5k to the front row. Either way, it is thinning 2 cards out of deck, and the trigger compression in this deck is getting thinner and thinner, choosing to call over the Yuika. We are once again looking at the double Ophelia board. This deck is so strong, so consistent, so powerful.
Yes, that is correct, and we have you are correct about the call over. Ideally, you just want to deck thin, and you don't really care what you're calling as long as they're normal units, and then you use your hand, which is usually like 15 cards, to call better cards over, and that's what we saw here. Also applying the extra 5k from Yuika. And then also here, these numbers are huge. I just want to let that be known. These are the Persona numbers on top of Reese's, and then Yuika's boost power, and then we're going to be restanding here on both sides now. But first, the gem effect here, so blasting the Ballista. That one's on attacks. That one has to happen first. And at the end of battle, we'll see the Ophelia restand as well, the other Ophelia. And then they'll both get plus 15k power. And I see we got a front, which just made it even worse for the numbers.
Wow.
So now we're looking at, so their normal base is 28. We got 38 from Persona, 48 from the front, and then we also have the additional 10k from the Reese's happening. So yeah, these are some big hefty numbers. Our Zergo players at 4 damage right now. If there's another PG, this is gonna look very scary here.
My goodness, yeah. So that front trigger, alongside the Persona ride, alongside the fact that both the Ophelias get their own set of power there. The 5th damage looking to be a defensive. Which not a heal, unfortunately, but yes, very helpful nonetheless. But out comes one more PG to live at 5 damage.
Yes, good stuff. So with the Zorga player to survive here, they have 5 damage to work with. They could like hard ride the Zorga if they want. They don't necessarily have to Alchemy Magic it. So if they want, they could just hard ride, or they can decide that they go through the order effects. However, they decide to do it here. They do need to think this turn through very well though, because you have to decide here: are you going to do a half farm, half aggression turn? Are you going to do a full farm turn and kind of slow down on the aggression? Are you going to go full aggression here? We are using the blue Zorga's effect again to just be able to revive the Shadow Cloak. The Shadow Cloak has been placed from hand though, so that this first effect will not go live here. So, but still, we do know the Zorga mask was in hand. So, oh no, it's not in hand, still on the board actually. But I think we're having a soul issue here. And I think soul is really hurting us right now. But we do have this Tearful Malice to hopefully help us through.
Tearful Malice is going to be able to retire 2 of our rear guards to cycle itself out, put the copy of itself into soul and countercharge, give us some much needed resources, trading off the worst 2 cards from our board for hopefully another chance of redemption here. Let us see what happens. Like you said, I also think I wonder if like Mana will get punished here for not bouncing back to Ophelia. Though I feel like they've probably found another copy, or maybe 2 even, of these to replace the ones they have on board, and that's why they didn't even swing with it. Because if we had the Persona ride, we're going to be able to get that 10k to the front, and Ophelias themselves don't even need the counterblast to gain that 15. And 33, 33, 33 is already an crazy front row lineup to deal with.
Yeah, that is correct. I do think, having the face down damage here, Thomas can make a decision to choose to swing to the rears and pass. And it'll slow down the turn a little bit, but that, it won't slow down the hand. So they could still play gems. They just can't restand anything.
What will Thomas's line of play be here? It looks like 2 of the RPDs came down there, the Roaming Prison Dragons. So they are going to get the 10k and the crit this turn. Now the question is, 10k and a crit. Our opponent is not at 4, so that's not lethal yet. You swing with one of those and you give our opponent that last 2 counterblasts they need for another full Willista combo turn. That could be spelling doom for yourself. Will Thomas Quinn be able to swing with the Vanguard and find 2 crits to be able to split them amongst the Roaming Prison Dragons to try and close out the game that way? What will the line of play be, Thomas Quinn? What is your choice?
I think something to note here as well, there is no Dragon Tree marker, which means there is no 4th attack. So they can't extend.
It is only these 3 attacks that Thomas Quinn can play with.
Yeah, I think this is where things get kind of tricky, because the Roaming Prison Dragons do have a lot of pressure to them, but does it really compare to the pressure that you're seeing applied to you on the other side of the board with those double Ophelias? I think we see a crit coming down though. So
yes, that is a crit.
maybe,
so now we have a lethal column. Yep.
At least 1 lethal column.
That's another crit. So now that's
another
2
crit.
columns.
Okay.
So everything has to be guarded now, which is peak, because now damage now or not is going to happen regardless.
Yes,
as Tony predicted. We see it here now.
So Thomas Quinn being able to find that light of salvation, playing the dark deck here. Roaming Prison Dragon sitting at a very nice 25, 35 even with the crits now.
45.
45.
It's Persona, and then Mask gives another 10k, and then 10k off their own. So it should be 15, 25, 35. Should be 45. Yeah, it should be 45 each side, plus the triggers. So that's actually 55.
55, going to be able to pull out a lot of guard from Mana's hand as well. But at the same time, being able to choke Mana off that much needed counterblast. This does make the upcoming turn quite easier for Thomas Quinn here, especially with the 2 triggers we're able to find. That is going to be 30k 2-hand in shield. However, is it enough? We do know how big it is. There's the Persona ride. There's the discard. We are going to find another gem. We are going to find that a cycler be able to get ourselves some more hand refund that we lost from that last turn. Thomas Quinn, do you have it in hand? Do you have the PGs? Do you have that 6 damage heal on top? That is what's needed.
Yes. I mean, this turn will be a little bit slower since we do only just have the 3 attacks, but there are 3 large attacks, kind of similar to what Thomas just presented. So that the double crit, I think, basically bought Thomas a turn here, and we have a chance of survival as long as we have enough shield to take on these big numbers.
That's really going to be the question: is is the hand healthy enough to survive, even if it's only 3 attacks, 3 very, very large attacks? Because unfortunately for Thomas, not sitting on the same comfortable bed of less damage, of the 3 damage compared to the 5 he's already on. So we'll have to see what happens here.
And in the blink of an eye, Manix be able to refill their hand because of the Elviras in the back.
Yep,
We kind of see this narrative now. Zorga not being able to touch the opponent's board, whereas Gandiva would be able to. Those Elviras are able to turn after turn after turn be able to replenish themselves, become a +/-1, a +1, a +2 even.
Yes.
They pay for themselves and then more. Here comes 40k from the hand.
Oh my.
55 from the
A
hand.
hard guard. I've never seen someone
Wow.
hard guard Ballista before. It's always like PG or take. Interesting. All right. We did see the
Okay.
heal. Something to keep a note. I actually haven't seen too many heals come out from both ends here. So there's still, you know, a shot.
There's potential.
Here we
Right,
have
here
a
comes the big
number.
swing. I believe that this one has the crit.
Thought that was a heal we saw, but I could be mistaken. They look a little similar.
Oh.
Choosing to take it, and
It is a heal. It is a heal.
Oh, 6 damage
It is a
heal.
heal.
6 damage heal.
We're still in. We're still in. Oh, the prayer.
One
The
last
prayer
attack.
hands thanking the RNG.
7 damage
Oh,
heal.
gosh.
7 damage
wait,
heal.
we still have to take another
Can
one?
we get there?
Oh.
It's not a 7 damage heal,
Oh,
but
not a
Thomas
7
Quinn.
damage heal. A little looks like a little
So-
virtual handshake there.
Oh,
Virtual
wow.
handshake. GG's to both players. Mana being able to
Wow.
take the win with the win Lista. My good, but Thomas Quinn as well, that last turn with the double RPD, with the double crit to force the opponent into that decision or choke them out of the decision and choke them out of the ability to be able to get that full ballista turn off. One more heal and we could have survived off of that. The double, the hard guard, double front trigger guard coming from Thomas Quinn's hand. Both players played out of their mind. It was unironically a lot closer than I thought. Even though Ballista had a lot of that hand, another set of like double crit triggers on those 2 RPDs could have been the game closer. Wow, Ty, give me wrap up the game. Give me your thoughts here.
Man, you know, it was obviously, you know, I was not shy about my bias of wanting to see the one lone deck try and pull through, and it seemed like Thomas was doing everything that they could to try and play that to the best of their ability. And also with the situation given, we saw, like we mentioned, those early guards, very, very important when you know later in the game, you're going to be staring down the barrel of, at one point, nearly 60k columns. So you going to be very, very difficult to guard those. So kind of having that initial cushion of being able to safely take damage definitely helped somewhat. But I don't think we were able to see just the same amount of pressure come from Zorga's side of things. Definitely had a very valiant attempt getting both of those roaming prison dragons out there and then double checking those crits. I have to think that in that moment, Mana was probably very thankful about dropping the PG there, because you think that maybe sitting on 3 damage, I could probably safely take a Vanguard swing, but that could have just been it right there. It could have just been over just like that. But yeah, I think very, very, very well fought on both sides, especially too, like that kind of like damage denial, whether intentional or not, with those crits. Definitely was like some sort of attempt there, but yeah, no, Willista's power just too strong to handle here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the early game was kind of where the biggest hurtfulness was coming through. I do think that Alviria should have gotten off the board a little bit sooner. Personally, I think that's where the main drawing started happening. It would have been one less draw, potentially one less chance to find good targets. I think that might have been a game changer. Maybe one less chance to find a PG, which could have been a game changer. But overall, I think it was well played. I think just having running out of soul and just having no way to replenish it to go into a Zorga mask turn on that turn, since that's the upside of going second, you have access to instantly persona riding on that same turn, and missing out on that persona, missing out on that extra draw, I think was like the most hurtful part. Also, like I said, it's a 20k front. It's not a 10k front. It's 20k. So 20k with dragons is an additional 10k from the dragons alone, and the crit pressure on top of that. That is a 30k additional power on the board, basically. And losing out on that, I think, was like the biggest, because that again could have swayed the game so much. There would have been a lot more cards coming out of hand. But overall, still extremely well played between both players. Really well done. They performed to their best abilities, and that's what top 8's all about.
Absolutely. I do agree with you that the turning factor was probably that one decision point on that grade 2 ride to leave the Elvira on board. That card managed to not only force a guard out of hand, but also be able to draw at least one, if not two cards on those gem plays. So I think I'm in the same boat as you. I think if I saw that Elvira there, I would have marked it for removal. But nonetheless, like you said, both players played out of their minds. They played what they had to. They played to their outs, and I respect both of them for doing so. But we are going to have our top 4 match for you upcoming soon. So we're going to take you guys to a quick break. Do not go anywhere. 2 more games to figure out who our top Bushiroad Rumble Online NA will be. And we'll see you soon.
See ya.
Weiss Schwarz. Experience the full-blown high school story on the stage of Weiss Schwarz once again. Saikano, How to Raise a Boring Girlfriend Flat Booster Pack, now on sale. Bushiroad.
Weiss Schwarz. Water, earth, fire, air. Join Aang and his friends in their adventure to master the 4 elements and defeat Fire Lord Ozai, Avatar The Last Airbender, Trial Deck Plus, Booster Pack, and Supply Set. Now on sale. Bushiroad.
Weiss Schwarz. The Academy was the Girls' Orchard. The popular visual novel series joins the stage of Weiss Schwarz. The fruit of Grisaya Trial Deck and Booster Pack. Now on sale. Bushiroad.
Weiss Schwarz is a trading card game that adapts anime and game titles, so everyone can enjoy their favorite titles as a card game. In this video, we will show you a brief tutorial to the basics of the game in 6 minutes. Decide who goes first with rock, paper, scissors. The winner goes first. Both players shuffle their decks and draw 5 cards as their starting hand. Discard the cards you don't want from your hand into the waiting room. Then, draw the same number of cards you discarded. When both players are done, let's Weiss Schwarz. First, draw a card from your deck. Now, let's play a character onto the stage. To attack, turn your character sideways. Attack! You deal damage to your opponent equal to your character's soul. As there are no characters facing the attacking character performs a direct attack and gets an additional soul. Flip the top card of your deck as your trigger check. Different triggers give different effects. In this case, it's a soul icon, so your character gets 1 additional soul. Put the card you just flipped over face down into your stock. As you can see on the right, there are various ways in which we can increase the damage we deal to our opponent. For this attack, we will deal a total of 3 damage. The opponent will flip over cards equal to the damage taken from the top of their deck and put them into their clock. With this, we will end our turn. Now it's your opponent's turn. Draw phase. During the clock phase, you may put a card from your hand into your clock. To draw 2 cards, the opponent plays 3 characters on their stage and 1 on their backstage. While characters on the backstage cannot attack, characters with the assist ability can boost the power or give effects to characters in front of them. Opponent attacks. Any triggers? No triggers. So that's 2 damage. Opponent attacks. Trigger check. A soul trigger. That's 1 additional soul for a total of 3 damage. Cancel. If a climax card turns up, damage cancel occurs, and all cards flipped for damage is put into your waiting room. This means you take 0 damage from this attack. Opponent attacks. As there is a character facing the attacking character performs a frontal attack and gets no additional soul during the attack. No icons, no bonuses. So you receive only 1 damage. When there is an opposing character facing the attacking character, a battle between them occurs. In a battle, the character with the higher power wins. The character with lower power loses the battle, becomes reversed, and sent to the waiting room at the end of battle phase. And that's the end of your opponent's turn. Draw phase. This time, let's clock 2. Let's fill your stage with characters, including our backstage. The center character gets assist from both backstage characters. Now, let's play a climax card. Different climax cards gives you different effects. This climax gives all your characters.
Welcome back, one and all, to Bushiroad Rumble Online 2023. We just have wrapped up our top 8 round. So now we are at our top 4. So we saw Mana once again get the win over Zorga. Unfortunately, everyone, we will not be seeing Zorga anymore in our top 8. No more Zorgan time. However, great kudos to them for making it this far regardless. Let's go ahead and take a look at who our top 4 contestants will be. Orange, take it away.
Sure. Mana is facing
Mana!
Nomad in the
Every
first.
time.
Yeah, sorry, it's a curse. I have to do it. And then Ty, you want to do the other one?
Yeah, so our other round that we'll have for top 4 is going to be Kai versus Sri. So either one of these are going to be the match that we'll be taking a look at next on stream. Tony representing his native land.
So I'm excited. So gonna quickly take a look here. So we know that Mana is on Willista. We know that Kai is on Willista. We know that Nomad is on Willista. And I believe the last player was that Casey Alex? Or it was 3. Okay, so we've got 3 Willista, 1 Gandiva in our top 4 here. So we've got 1 hot, fiery dragon boy versus 3 cutie patootie anime girls.
Easter, let's go.
Easter. Yeah. So I'm excited to see what comes out on top here. Now, so this is our one chance. We will be seeing a Willista mirror match just based on how, or we won't be seeing it. We might, but we will know that it will happen. So in a Willista mirror match, is it who goes first? Is it who goes second? Is there a way that someone going second could be able to leverage the tempo loss of having to deal with all those affiliates coming down while they're only on turn 2? Orange, I feel that you are more experienced in this side of things. Tell me about the Willista mirror match.
This is a pretty tough matchup. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's gonna come down to the draws. If whoever sees the cycler more often is gonna have an easier time farming hand. It's gonna come down to the dice roll 2 here. Going first is a immensely, I think, easier time because you have the 4 attacks while your opponent's still in grade 2. I think that's going to differentiate it back. A lot of it's going to come down to the cycler. I think the cycler just really carries because you just get that free advantage. And the person that's not going to have the cycler is going to have a way harder time keeping up. And also going first and second does matter, but it won't be like as like deciding as much as like keeping your hand healthy into these crazy like big numbers. So we're going to have to see kind of what they both draw into, because their draws is going to decide some of this. Like they can kind of try and swing to rears and try and play off CB and be a little careful, which is going to be really important, but also what pieces they're seeing, what their top 5 is looking like is going to be like a massive change between, and the tempo will definitely be changing depending on that.
I absolutely agree. And now, Ty, my question for you is, on one side, we will be seeing a Willista mirror, but on the other side, we'll be seeing Gandiva versus Willista. We saw this in top 8. We saw Willista completely mollywop Gandiva. What does Gandiva need to do to get the win there, besides the obvious go first?
Yeah, going first definitely going to be good. We've already seen how kind of impactful that early guarding can be as well. Having that little safety cushion of damage to be able to kind of like safely take some really big hits is probably going to help a lot as well. And ideally kind of give you more hand to work with later in the game, either to apply pressure by calling them to your board, and then potentially saving pieces to get those pluses going later on as well. Because Gandiva, while Gandiva can continue to scale higher and higher, I feel like Wallista kind of hits that ceiling, but hits that ceiling earlier, but doesn't go much farther. So Gandiva, like I said, has the longevity, provided that they can survive those initial onslaught turns. So I think it's really going to kind of come down to very, very careful play and planning for sure.
I do believe that will be the matchup that we will be seeing now. So let's go ahead and move on to the player side of things. It sounds like the players are both ready to show us. It is going to be Kai. It is going to be Sri. It is going to be Canada versus Canada. Wallista versus Gandiva. We saw this matchup round 8. We will be seeing it once more in top 4. Let's see if the narrative is able to change. Let's see if Gandiva is able to make it to the longer part of the game, where they will be able to farm up the resources and stabilize on those very large numbers, that very large hand. Looks like Mulligan is being done here. Kai on the left representing Wallista, and Sri on the right representing Gandiva. A lot of Dragon Empire representation in the sleeves, in the deck box up there I see at the front, and the mat. And over on the left we have Kai with the Wallista repping the Ava sleeves. I can see which deck they probably used to play before this.
Yeah, definitely got the Brain Gate special. Like yes, we are playing Brain Gate today. Be fearful of that over trigger. You flip it, it's like, oh, it's gems.
Brain Gate keyboard too. Damn, look at that sleek whiteness.
True, it matches. Very, very matching aesthetic.
So it looks like they're still deciding on the final cuts there. So, like we said before, Ty and I talked about it. Gandiva has that longevity. It has that indefinite scaling. If you can get your entire deck into bind, even if you don't attack with the Vanguard, that's a very large number on your rear guards at least. Whereas Wallista, it reaches a ceiling a lot faster, but sometimes it just hits it so fast that our opponent never gets a chance to reach their ceiling. So in this matchup, what needs to happen on Wallista's side of things to win? What needs to happen on Gandiva's side of things to win? In my eyes, if Gandiva is able to start off strong, get to its grade 3 turn first, and because it has a crit pressure immediately on the grade 3 turn, if we are able to get that 5 bind, I think that helps a lot because it can force Wallista into that very early damage deficit. And especially when they go in first, they can't persona ride. So they don't have that ability to use full usage of all of their counterblasts at once. They will have that one counterblast on the Ophelia. They won't be able to use the extra counterblast from the gem. They won't be able to use the counterblast from the cycler. So it's just going to be them waiting on some extra open damage. And with that, I think Gandiva can kind of bring it away from them. Whereas on Wallista's side, we saw it yesterday. We saw Wallista's grade 3 turn. We saw it last round even. We saw the Wallista grade 3 turn. So strong, so impactful. Persona Ride or not, Ophelia's will be 28k. That is heinous. And 13k to start the swing, attack with the Vanguard, 20k to start the swing. You have Yurika to be able to bounce back these very precious attackers to always have a fence to be able to present to your opponent. Let's see what our opponent is able to do. Stand up Vanguard, round 4 of BRO ready to begin, and it looks like Wallista will be starting off once again. What will be the discard for the ride?
Preferably a cycler.
And normally, if it is a cycler, wouldn't you like normally shotgun the discard here?
This is
let's say Alvira.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you gotta give up the pieces, and the first pieces you want to give up are the ones that don't help you restand. So
immediately, yes, I agree with that.
The cards that you're not going to be able to use right away.
Yeah, exactly. And Alvira is a turn 3 card anyway, so what you could do is boost early.
So immediately going for the swing there. Yep.
I was gonna say, noticing here, since we don't have any way to like call a lot of rears here, getting some free cards to hand on Gandiva's side early on.
I think we
Both
saw
players.
Gandiva on that drive check, so very early Persona ride knowledge there.
Yes.
Yeah, we see both players respecting each other's knowledge of each other's deck, knowing how high and how scary and powerful each deck becomes on the grade 3 ride, throwing down those extra triggers that we don't need for our combo to be able to guard with right now. What will be the discard for Kai? And we saw this yesterday. We saw playing around the free discard on the right deck from Aguirre. So I want to see that happen on this side as well with Kai. We get the Ballista ride that is going to go ahead and grab us some gems in orange. What do you think about this play?
So this right now is where you're seeing Ballista lose hand advantage. So we saw 2 discards that aren't a cycler. We saw a trigger go into Soul, which is also shield. And while the gem can potentially bring back good cards, but you can also draw into cards like Ophelia, which is also not shield. So we're seeing like kind of the lesser good end of Ballista kind of come out here. It's still good because they'll be able to draw cards, but what's really scary here is if those cards aren't good cards, that's a 3-card hand right now, which can be scary. We're gonna come back to 5, but you know, once you start drawing to gems or cards that don't value shield, you're going to start struggling, and dropping a Yuika and an Elvira that early also says like, hey, I have pieces in hand, and guess what, I have like no shield in hand. So
yeah, that's a big thing. Like this is a quantity over quality kind of deal here, but we do find the Yuika, we do find the Romana, and that is a big call I'm going to be able to use there. Do we see one more card called down to be able to prevent our opponent from getting that free ride? And it doesn't look like it.
Wow.
It's hard to do that here. What do you call? That's a 3-card hand. You don't really want to go too crazy either. So like this is kind of like this could be a game changer. We might see like a shift happen here because once Gandiva has to turn, the draw's going to help a lot too there.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, I feel like
this is still hitting over. This is still hitting over.
That's a matter of minusing yourself to keep the opponent from plussing. I feel like in that scenario. So it's like which is the less bitter pill to swallow there.
Yeah, exactly. And getting the double defensive there also early triggers. Maybe not in the best places, but this is that's a small Ballista hand. We're gonna hope that Kai finds some cyclers soon because that hand is not gonna get that much bigger with what we've seen so far.
Playing it slow over on Sri's side of things, just going to get that free ride going into the grade 2 and finds a PG off the top. Very helpful into this upcoming turn, and it is just going to be a simple pass there. Unfortunately, that Ramana coming out with that Yuika booster for 28k, 1 defensive trigger is not enough, and I'm surprised I didn't see Sri actually commit more cards to guard, but maybe too many pieces in hand, not enough triggers, not enough shield to guard with.
Yeah, exactly. We did see that Persona ride get checked earlier, so that's definitely something you can call. Now here, this is again a really scary part here. We have to discard for ride, and then we have to discard again for the gem. We're really negging right now. We're finally seeing Ballista in a place where it doesn't want to be in. And this is, of course, the players doing their best here, but this is just something to note that we've seen so many cards get discarded, so many pieces. We're discarding another piece just to get that gem back, and hopefully we'll be able to recover from this and start drawing some cards, but this isn't that book hand that we're used to seeing that we have seen for the last couple of games.
I think the main thing there.
Oh, sorry. I think it's just what's interesting there is like even with a deck like Ballista, something that we've seen that is so powerful and so consistent, just given the nature of a trading card game where you have like your deck getting randomized sometimes, despite all the consistencies you have built in, sometimes just random chance will kind of just give you not what you want, and so you end up no matter how infrequent, you still will have those like low rolls come up every now and again.
Yeah, exactly. And that top 5 was that's a rough top 5. Sorry, you can go, Toku.
Normally off of this top 5, you want to call 2 things out to make the trigger compression a bit better, but based on the discards, it looks like our hand is full of pieces. All the triggers are still stuck in deck, and normally on this turn, you'd normally see Elvira's on the board to be able to make that gem more than just a cycle, but rather a +1 at the very least. And it's on this turn where our opponent is going from grade 1 to 2 that you feel more safe to keep those Elviras on board. Not only does it prevent our opponent from getting that free discard for the ride, but B, it also lets you make immediate value off of them when you do use the gem for the Ballista turn. You might lose them in the future, but at least you get value of them at the time that they're coming out on the board. You might as well even like make them into a full call to attack 16k with and try and push your Gandiva player to high damage.
Noticing here that this is it. So no 4th attack, We're actually only going with 2 attacks. We'll be able to bounce the cycler back to hand, which hopefully there's a persona in hand to then kind of at least replenish a little bit next turn. But this is basically a very, I would say, a vanilla turn for Volista.
Yeah, we
At
see
least that's still
guarding
big.
early as well too, or guarding more, which I think is going to be probably pretty relevant here too, because you have to wonder. I feel like Sri's probably sensing a little bit of blood in the water with that very, very kind of like lackluster Willista turn. Definitely not as explosive as we're used to seeing. So I feel like this is probably the moment where you either you don't really need to stabilize because you haven't really been knocked off just yet.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I think the main thing here is that Kai, even though not being able to put up like an amazing offense on their turn, still is somewhat playing around Gendiva, only giving one option for Gendiva to get the retire on. This also means that any best harvest in hand, we don't really want to use right now because we don't actually get the plussing of it. It's more of a cycle. It's just like how this turn the gem was also just a cycle. So being able to stave off some ability to give advantage to the Gendiva player there is very good. Like despite having that very lukewarm turn, the Willista hand is still looking very healthy based on that, like, I don't know what we see there. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 cards in hand on the Great Return, despite doing something very lackadaisy. And we do get that free counterblast on the Gendiva, and I'm hoping to see more pieces come down. 2 in bind. Let's see if we can make it to that 5 in bind to immediately get that crit pressure going on, immediately get that 10k to the front row, and that's the turn 3 persona ride that we all know and love.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point there about because there's so many less pieces on the board, there's not much for Gendiva to really retire, which also could be another reason why Kai chose not to call a potential rearguard. That was possible that there might have been some in hand and they chose to hold off. And that's also something to keep in mind because, you know, your first Willista turn is good, but it's not like insanely. You don't have the 5 attacks and, you know, you don't want to lose your pieces either. So I think that's a very good point to bring up here. So now we're kind of, now we can stabilize here on a persona turn.
There comes Sturgna, going to use its effect on place to Soul Blast 1 and bind another regard face down. Attempt to retire, but nothing to retire. So we do get a cycle, and we also do get to bind a card from drop. So we're getting 2 binds off of this, and I do believe that this is the 5 in bind that we need to hit our 10. Here comes I believe that's an Alpha Kark, and I do think that was like when their Vanguard attacks, we do get to counterblast and bind himself to be able to find us a new attack. So this will be 20k at the Vanguard. If we were at 7, this will be a nice magic number hitting at 24, forcing at least 15k to guard. And as we know from Kai's calls, those hand probably not very trigger happy, if you know what I mean.
This is very true. Luckily enough, one thing that's interesting about the Altagar is that when it binds itself, it actually pluses the board by 2k as well. So it just instantly beefs the board. So you usually want to guard here just because the numbers are only gonna get bigger from here. So if you want to like guard the early attacks, this is the place to guard.
Kai thinking on which way to guard, how to guard right now, because guarding here is guarding with pieces based on what we saw in the drive checks, based on what we can assume off of the call 5. So like you said, Orange, regardless of Alpha card hitting or not, it is going to be able to buff up the front row once again, and it will only get bigger and bigger. So I think this is what needs to happen in Gendiva's side to win. They are able to get this really strong grade 3 turn where we are able to destabilize the Willista player at the same time as stabilizing ourselves. So actually going to be able to pull out a trigger from hand there on the guard. Here comes again Gendiva swing. Going to use the Alpha card skill to counterblast 1 and bind itself face down. We're going to find the top 5 cards of our deck, and what will we find here? Now, looking at the options, I think the best one to find is probably anything that has an on hit, right? Anything that could be a great 2 to intercept with. And that looks like, is that Meteor Flare Dragon? That looks like Meteor Flare Dragon.
Yes,
it
it
is.
is.
Meteor Flare Dragon, yes. Which is also good. Just another, it's a great 2. I think at this point it's more of an intercept. It also gains power if there's no rear guards.
It's
so
a
it is
20K
a
right
beefy
now.
boy. So that's an even bigger card that's going to be swinging than, you know, the first attack that we saw. So actually, again, it's always smart to guard those early attacks because now these numbers got extra front, and then like the Meteor Flare also just got bigger. So
Yeah, Meteor Flare Dragon as a card has been one that we haven't seen in every Gandiva deck. It's kind of been sort of a tech choice for some people, but it's definitely just got like a lot of utility to it. Just something that can retire things because Gandiva loves retiring things, and then just having a backup kind of little beater as well. So
Yeah.
when it comes up in situations like this, kind of finding it off the top like that, I don't think anybody's complaining about a grade 2 that gets plus 10k popping out in the middle of your battle phase.
Yep, exactly.
Absolutely not.
Okay, here we got to think, do we take this damage, put ourselves to 3? Because then it makes Gandiva a lot harder here in a turn because the crit pressure is what makes it hard. But then you want to take it to potentially be able to heal more in the future. So it's kind of a hard choice here. You can take it and kind of keep yourself healthy. Yeah, also that hand, we know some good cards in there. You don't really want to use those cards right now. You may need them. So opting to guard with the front trigger here, keeping the healing not necessarily as important, but at least staying safe. If there's a chance that Kai has to take the Vanguard, they have room to take it without having to worry too much about it going into a lethal blow as fast.
Absolutely. And just like we said, the numbers from the Gandiva side, it's only going to get bigger from here. So if it's easier to guard at this point, we may as well guard while we still can. And it looks like no shotgun on the Persona right there. So the powers aren't going to be as big as they were. I wonder if we even have an Ophelia, if we even have a gem. Not being able to Persona ride means that we don't get the gem back into rotation. So there's a lot that is not happening this turn, which is normal, which is expected, which is needed for Willista to pop off here.
Yeah, this is a big turning point here. Not having access to Persona is one of the hardest things for Ballista players to deal with. When they're in situations like this, it's extremely hard to come back from because you're basically hoping that you draw into a Ballista or hope you see it in top 5, and we haven't been seeing it. So now you got to think, what do you do here? Because your hand's looking kind of small. You haven't seen any cyclers. You don't have any gems. You don't have Persona. There's only so much you can do, and that's a very vanilla. Everything's relying on you still watching the gems. So right now, there's no abilities active.
It looks like we're just going for a Vanguard swing, I think.
Yeah, I think honestly,
No board
Vanguard
call,
and Vanguard.
yeah.
Because you can't deny either. There's already one face-up damage, so.
Yep. This is pretty interesting because probably could call something, but like we saw in the last turn, like the pieces may not be the most ideal, so played very conservatively, and this is also just another very conservative play here.
Ooh, giving that 15 for a 2 to pass, but 3 is going to be able to sneak away with that. We do find a trigger, and we do find another card to guard with, but we also know about the Persona ride. We do know big numbers are coming out here. One counterblast to play with. We are looking for the counter chargers in Boken to be able to continue our chain calls here. This is going to be 5 attacks. We are already at 6 binds, so that's already 12k to the front row. We have a bunch of self binders, probably going to hit that nice 14k to the front row, which makes our grade 2s by themselves hit the match number, ask for at least a trigger to guard in conjunction with the Persona ride. That is going to be more than just a trigger to guard. Everything here is going to be at least 2 cards to guard. It's a good thing that Kai guarded last turn because these numbers are just getting bigger.
Yeah, that is correct. I think now having the breathing room to take damage is important here because this is usually Gandiva's big aggressive turn. Having the bind and the Persona and the multi-attacking makes this a usually pretty hard turn to deal with for most players. So this definitely the place. So looks like we did get a trigger here to kind of help a little bit. It at least knocks down that Persona power. So now we're dealing with a little bit easier guarding value here. So here we have doing Gandiva's, not Gandiva's effect, sorry, the grade 2's effect to counterblast.
Yeah, Alpha Car.
Yep, to be able to grab another attacker potentially here. This is a rough situation to be in. You're at 3 damage. Vanguard has a crit on it. This is like now that number is huge. You we're at the point of where you need to start perfect guarding the Vanguard more so than just blocking it with triggers. So hopefully we have a PG somewhere in there to be able to block this. Otherwise, this could be a very lethal blow here.
Choosing to call out Rujan off the Alpha card there. And here's something that I find interesting about this attack pattern. I find it interesting that Sri did not swap the position of the Alpha car and the grade 3 there, because either way, that Alpha car was going to get played over. So I would have preferred to be able to keep that grade 3 in the back, just in case I'm unable to present a new attacker on the next turn. I'd still be able to push that grade 3 to the front to still have an attacker. And every card in play now, because of how strong Gandiva buffs the front row, is valuable. So I wonder if this comes... Oh,
OT.
that's an over trigger on the twin drive. We didn't see this yesterday, but this is
Nope.
where we want to find that OT. So finding that OT, that at least it
Wow.
catches a perfect guard. But do we have a
Yeah.
second one?
Yeah, without that second perfect guard, I don't know if I don't know if there's going to be another turn after this one.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Restanding the crit pressured Vanguard does make this a
Yeah.
lot harder. Not losing the drive checks here, and on top of having the 100 million as well, this is going to be a very, very hard turn to block it. It was already hard. It just got a little bit harder. Oh, actually, interestingly enough, I didn't even realize this, but because of that grade 2, you could actually do it again if you have an open counterblast.
Yes.
I didn't even think about that in context.
If you had all the alpha cars and all the CB face up, you could go alpha car swing, and then maybe you're like, I feel like I'm gonna hit an OT.
And if you do, you can redo it. Whew, that's actually, I never seen that interaction happen before. I didn't even realize you could, but you can.
Yeah. One of those things that doesn't pop up very often, except for every now and again, because like it didn't really have the piece on the board or the counterblast for it, but it could definitely be something that can come up every now and again.
Yeah, exactly.
Kai trying their darndest to guard the rear guard attacks, because that's not the one with the crit pressure here. Here comes the meteor flare swinging at 20 plus the persona ride plus the 7 in bind. That is going to stick a damage in. We do find another defensive trigger there, but what is 110k defensive to 100 million? We do have the second PG at least on Kai's side of things to be able to walk away from this turn without taking too much damage.
I think here what's really smart is the attack pattern the 3 chose. So they were basically trying to knock out as much as possible to make the Vanguard basically lethal, making the assumption that there wasn't a second PG in hand. So now that was an interesting assumption to make there, because had they swung with Vanguard first, you know, the PG would have come down instantly. It would have been a different game. But also, if they didn't have the PG, that would have been the lethal blow there, because that was a crit and I believe a heal on top there. So that was 2 triggers.
So if Sri would have swung with the Vanguard immediately after the first Vanguard swing, that heal also would have gone off.
It would have gone off, yeah.
So that's pretty important to note as well. And that also would have made even when that PG like did come down, because it likely would have in that scenario. Then you have that I think it was the Meteor Flare Dragon that had the crit before. Now all of a sudden that's a lethal column as well. So very very interesting kind of plays here, but it's kind of what you I guess kind of expect, because the overtrigger ideally doesn't come up too often, especially if you're on the side of Kai here. You don't want to see that coming up in the scenario, and so with that being kind of a rare occurrence, maybe don't always have like a pretty solid game plan for when that comes up.
Unfortunately, Kai not being able to find the persona ride for the second turn in a row, not going to be able to get gems in rotation, and which means we aren't going to be able to soul blast gems to turn on the Ophelia as well. So once again, presenting another vanilla turn into Sri's side of things, and I think it's at this point that Sri has scaled past what Wallista can do. We were able to stave off the initial few turns where Wallista would probably have the stronger power, and now we are in command. We have the power. We have the bind. We have that front row permanent power. Yes, our overtriggers are out. Both overtriggers are out now. However, I think what Kai needs to do is try and damage the knight to prevent multi-attacks from happening out. But even if you prevent the multi-attacks from happening out, we saw this yesterday with the Wallista. Persona Ride with big bungus numbers is more than enough to close out the game. And if we have Persona Ride here, which we do, Persona Ride and big bungus numbers is enough to close out the game.
Yep, I think this is it. If Sri didn't smell blood in the water before, definitely does now. That's you hate to see it. It's kind of painful. Oh, look, just taking it. Yep, looks like
out the game.
That's it. That's the game. Yeah. you know, in that situation, it's heartbreaking at this point, and not just the game, but in the course of our tournament to you know, come this far. But sometimes, unfortunately, bad variants can come for us all, whether we're ready for it or not, whether we've tested and we've planned and we've piloted successfully many times before. That's the one great equalizer that none of us can
Yeah.
can avoid.
Well,
Yeah.
something to note, with every best deck there comes weaknesses too. So, but
Yeah.
I did briefly mention this yesterday, how I was saying we saw like the super high end of Ballista, but when you see the low end, you get stuck. Yeah, but it's
Mm.
okay. It was overall a very well done performance. I think their Kai did literally everything in their power they could do, performed very well overall. Just overall did
Mhm.
whatever they could do to win. Something to note that the OT was not the deciding factor there. It was really just a matter of like the drawing and what we saw there.
Yeah.
OT or no OT, I think just
Yeah.
struggling to find pieces, struggling to persona ride, struggling to basically just get through the game was really what was hurting our Ballista player there. And Gandiva was just also being able to find pieces was like what was really
Yeah.
making it there. So
I think, yeah. So we kind of like you said yesterday and like earlier today, we kind of saw the higher end of what Willis is able to do. Persona ride after persona ride, gem after gem, draw after draw. But this time around, we did not get to see Willis to do what it needs to do. We didn't get the persona ride. We only got one gem ever in rotation, and that's the one gem that we searched off of the ride line. We weren't able to get it back via the on ride placement, which is so important. Like, I think it just kind of like really emphasizes the importance of being able to draw and cycle through your deck as soon as possible to find at least that second copy of a Ballista, because that second copy of a Ballista not only equals a draw on a persona ride, but it also equals being able to get another copy of the gem, which is another draw, which then helps find other Ballistas, so that way you can keep up the momentum that we've been seeing Willis do so far today and yesterday. This time around, was not able to stay that momentum. We did get a good grade 1 turn. We did get a good grade 2 turn with that pressure, being able to also kind of put on the pressure onto the Gandiva side of things, which I thought was going to be guarded more heavily because of the understanding of both matchups and how both dynamically and strong each other decks are. However, not being able to keep the momentum with the Persona Ride, I think that is what spelt the game for both players.
Yep, agreed.
Definitely.
But that's okay. We had to have our final match coming up soon, and in the meantime, we are gonna take a break here shortly. So do not go anywhere. This is the final match to decide our first place winner today. And as we saw, Gandiva won, and I believe the other player should be a Ballista player. Not 100% sure yet, but that probably is the matchup there. But we'll have to see.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah. But with that being said, guys, we'll see you soon. Do stick around. This is the official final match, first place. We gotta see who gets the first place. So stay tuned. Keep stay on. Don't go anywhere. So we'll see you soon.
No fire alarms.
No fire alarms.
Weiss Schwarz. Experience the full-blown high school story on the stage of Weiss Schwarz once again. Saikano, How to Raise a Boring Girlfriend Flat Booster Pack, now on sale. Bushiroad.
Weiss Schwarz. Water, earth, fire, air. Join Aang and his friends in their adventure to master the 4 elements and defeat Fire Lord Ozai, Avatar The Last Airbender, Trial Deck Plus, Booster Pack, and Supply Set. Now on sale. Bushiroad. Weiss Schwarz. The Academy was the Girls' Orchard. The popular visual novel series joins the stage of Weiss Schwarz. The Fruit of Grisaya Trial Deck and Booster Pack. Now on sale. Bushiroad. Weiss Schwarz is a trading card game that adapts anime and game titles, so everyone can enjoy their favorite titles as a card game. In this video, we will show you a brief tutorial to the basics of the game in 6 minutes. Decide who goes first with rock, paper, scissors. The winner goes first. Both players shuffle their decks and draw 5 cards as their starting hand. Discard the cards you don't want from your hand into the waiting room. Then, draw the same number of cards you discarded. When both players are done, let's Weiss Schwarz. First, draw a card from your deck. Now, let's play a character onto the stage. To attack, turn your character sideways. Attack! You deal damage to your opponent equal to your character's soul. As there are no characters facing the attacking character performs a direct attack and gets an additional soul. Flip the top card of your deck as your trigger check. Different triggers give different effects. In this case, it's a soul icon, so your character gets 1 additional soul. Put the card you just flipped over face down into your stock. As you can see on the right, there are various ways in which we can increase the damage we deal to our opponent. For this attack, we will deal a total of 3 damage. The opponent will flip over cards equal to the damage taken from the top of their deck and put them into their clock. With this, we will end our turn. Now it's your opponent's turn. Draw phase. During the clock phase, you may put a card from your hand into your clock. To draw 2 cards, the opponent plays 3 characters on their stage and 1 on their backstage. While characters on the backstage cannot attack, characters with the assist ability can boost the power or give effects to.
And we are back. We are just about ready to not only close out today with the very finals of Bushiroad Rumble Online 2023, but we are about ready to finish up the weekend itself with this upcoming final match. We've gone through 8 grueling rounds of Swiss yesterday. We just finished the top 8, the top 4. We saw some incredibly high caliber plays throughout all day, every day. One of my favorite moments for sure was definitely seeing the Messiah versus the Chrono Jet deck played out yesterday. That very cool leap to the past, being able to experience G format once again, except in D format, was one of my highlight moments for this weekend. What about you, Orange? What is a highlight?
I believe, I'm trying to remember yesterday's matches a little bit more, but we had the Flagberg matchup. I know I didn't cast it. I'm going to bring it up over and over again, but I just love seeing Flagberg in action because, first of all, a lot of people don't even know what Flagberg does half the time. And the other part is just really cool to watch. You just get to attack and swing and guard restrict and put some mushrooms in soul and bring them all out and restand stuff and do it all over again. And I love that. What about you, Ty?
Honestly, it's been very interesting casting all these rounds. I definitely love seeing Barrow just because even though Barrow didn't get the win, just it does my heart good to see my one of my OG favorite cards from the start of D still getting represented today. And then I think just not really a deck or a round or a match, but just that mushroom card. I've been taken by that card, and like just seeing it not even used in Grandfia. We haven't seen a single Grandfia over the last 2 days, but we've seen that mushroom card quite a bit, and I think that just speaks to kind of some of the versatility that we have in Overdress now with certain cards. Like even if something has like a dedicated deck that is meant to go into, the kind of universal applications make it so that it can be run in a variety of decks, and I think that's very, very cool.
I actually forgot that there was a second skill in that card. I forgot it's like it's the card for the other deck. I'm like, wow, I use this for everything but the deck it's meant for. I totally forgot about that part.
All right, perfect. So we know that as of last round, Sri was able to take the victory and make their way into the finals. Let's go ahead and see from the bracket who will be joining them. So it looks like in the other side, Mana was unable to get that victory over Nomad, and it is going to be Nomad over Sri. So once again, if it wasn't obvious enough, we will be having Wallista versus Gandiva. So what the same narrative as we saw last time. What I'm hoping for this time is full power from both sides. Unfortunately, Kai wasn't able to bring the full power of Wallista to the match. Sri was able to bring the full power of Gandiva to the match. Now I want to see both Nomad and Sri performing at their highest potential, showing off why these decks are the decks of the format. It sounds like the match is already ready. I'm ready. Orange, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Ty, are you ready?
I am.
Let us rumble in the final round of Bushiroad Rumble Online. We have Nomad on the left, Sri on the right, Wallista on the left, Gandiva on the right. Might makes right. Who will become victorious in today's and this weekend's tournament? Let's stand up the Vanguard.
Yes, this is very exciting. This is the official match. This will decide our first place champion today. Looks like we are going first, starting off very strong, the Wallista side here.
Very similar to the last round too. I believe correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Wallista player went first
They
last
did.
round as well. So
And we saw that gem come out early, so we'd have at least one gem in circulation now, getting the draw going, which is also very useful. So starting off pretty strong here.
Passing it over to the Sri side, we will get a very, very, very simple ride up. Oh, choosing to call something else down as well, trying to put on the pressure early, forcing cards out of Nomad's hand before they are able to use them, such as the finds out Ophelia. Ophelia is a great card to put into the damage zone early. One less to deal with. Here comes another trigger for an OG to pass. Not going to find anything. That was a crit, so that was a very good guard, especially at this time in the game where early guarding is at its easiest.
Yes,
very interesting. This is kind of the opposite approach that we saw from the last round, because I believe Sri almost kind of played a little bit more conservatively against the previous Wallista player, but this time kind of going in for some early aggression, because even if you're not necessarily doing a lot of damage, forcing your opponent to guard, especially in these early stages, to get that whittle that hand down, can only ever be a good thing.
Yes, precisely. And also here, we did see more gems could be used. And now we're also doing, again, the usual, this the Wallista special, get a gem into soul, draw 2.
Very consistent play. Everybody loves draw 2. I know I love draw 2. Now, I think one of the more important things to mention that I just noticed, if I'm not mistaken, Nomad discarded the heal trigger for their grade 1 ride. Nomad guarded with the heal trigger on that second turn too. So that's 2 heals already in public zone, which means every damage that Sri puts onto Nomad now is that much more effective. But Nomad also putting the pressure out very early. We do see that Elvira come out. We do see 2 rear guards onto the board, so we are not going to get that free discard. I wonder that Elvira is going to the rear. Actually going to go straight to the Vanguard there. That looks like a best harvest. One less best harvest to deal with. So here comes the Vanguard swing, sitting at a very nice 15k to the 8. That's also a no guard. Gonna find the recycler this time around. No defensive damage there. Looks like a meteor flare as well. And here comes one last guard there to try and step out of the turn with 2 damage to spare.
Yes, exactly. So here we have, I'm kind of wondering, that's a counter charge on the board, a very useful tool for Gandiva players. Typically, I'm assuming they have another one in hand, but I always like question this. So was it not a bad idea to swing to the rear guard there?
Oh, going straight rear guard into rear guard now.
Wow.
8 into 8, trying to get rid of the Elvira before we are able to get the value off of it. So that Vera was only there to really do a damage. Here comes another attack from the Vanguard column, this time with the booster. And the throwing a trigger down for an OT to pass is not going to work this time. Triggers can happen. 1-2 pass can happen. Choosing to no guard there. Finds a Gandiva. We do secure the Persona Ride for the future turns. We do get a defensive trigger there. However, no more attacks to deal with. So that defensive trigger does go to waste. Going over to Nomad's turn there, we are going to find the discard for the Willista Ride. That looks to be the Recycler. So we are going to be able to get a full value out of this turn there. Soul Blasting to be able to bot deck and draw a new card, as well as get the Willista effect to recycle a gem. And hopefully out of these few draws, we do find another Willista. And that will also help us secure momentum going into the turn 3, turn 4, turn 5.
Yeah, things already looking a lot better this round for Willista than it did the previous one.
Yes, exactly. So now we grabbed the gem. We're doing our Soul Blast top 5 here, finding some potential goodies here to set up a really strong board. You do have to play very carefully, knowing that the ride up, you're going to lose a bunch of rear guards. So sometimes you have to think, do you opt to get the Uica, the Elvira? Do you want Ophelia because you only run 4? There's already 1 in damage. You don't want to lose them too fast. Here is actually, this is a very interesting play here. It's one of my favorite plays to do, actually, getting the Uica and the Ballista, because Uica will be able to bounce the Ballista, which means you have Persona active for next turn, while also still being able to attack with them. So it's kind of like a double value in one interaction.
Beautiful. I love that, especially with how important we saw that the Persona Ride was from last game. That Willista is safest when it's in your hand, when it's on your board. And in order to get it into your hand, Eureka is the perfect card for that. You're not getting it retired because it's back in your hand, so Gandiva is not going to be able to choose it. And if Nomad is able to also put down another Eureka to bounce back the Ramana this upcoming turn, then Gandiva would only be able to choose grade 1s and just making it that much harder to retire both. However, going to be able to give Sri a nice buffet to decide from, but only 2 cards in the front row. Only 2 cards to be able to retire with best harvest, finding 2 triggers. Heal is live, front is live, looking very good there. And this time around against Gandiva, that counter heal is going to come up maybe big.
Yeah, it will come up because it actually, the 25k shield is massive. It makes it so you can sometimes no pass Gandiva if they don't get too many binds. But even if they do get the 5 bind, it usually will be a very solid 2 to pass with just 1 card, basically. So yes, the counter heals go really well into Gandiva.
And here going all the way to 4 already.
Yeah, the 4, and that was only 3 attacks, by the way. There was no Ophelia on the board.
5.
Wow.
5. Wow.
There is a chance that Gandiva player may be holding a lot of grade 3s. It does happen sometimes where you just happen to draw into all the personas and the other grade 3 that lets you retire a little bit. So that hand might not be looking so healthy because those numbers weren't that big. The front did make them bigger, but they weren't like insanely like unguardable, I guess is best.
Not even getting the best harvest immediately on the rip. So just retiring 2, but not getting the refund on the cards in hand. So right now on Street side of things, we are hoping for some heal triggers to try and stave off the kind of aggression that Nomad will be bringing. We know about the Persona Ride in hand. Do we know about the Ophelias? Do we know about anything else? But nonetheless, just having the Persona Rides, that is enough. That can like turn your turn from vanilla, which we saw last round with Tai, into something potentially being able to do that last 6 damage that we might see this time.
Yes, exactly. Props to the Gandiva players showing the cards they're binding before they bind them. Sorry, just like a random thing. I actually just really appreciate that. So just some player competitivity there. So just being able to show what they're binding.
Calling down the Sturgna to bind that initial grade 1, also binding something from drop to kind of cycle out some more. And I think one of the things I appreciate about Gandiva is that it does have blind draws. However, in this situation, when you are trying and fishing for heals, that is so hard to want to draw into heals, and you just feel so bad about it. building up the bind even more, trying to get that early crit pressure as soon as possible. We have our 5, we have our 10k to the run, we have our crit pressure coming out, but our opponent also has a counter heal. So like we said before, like we said so many times throughout this weekend, guard while you can. I wonder if we are going to see this counter heal come up big. Going to keep going as well, burning all of our resources, trying to just get as big as possible, make it harder for that counter heal to be a 1-card guard. And here comes again Diva Swing.
Yes, it's very important here because, going second, you want to apply as much pressure as possible to shred through that Ballista hand as quickly as possible. Ballista healing early and having the only 1 damage makes them in a really good spot here. Here is the counter heal coming through. So that is a 2 to pass, as we discussed a little bit earlier on. So that is a front.
Second front.
Wow. Going from 1 to 4 damage, 1 to 4 damage just like that. So that 2 to pass. And another Ophelia in the damage as well. It's very interesting to see there. But that 2 to pass comes through very nicely. But then at the same time, sometimes it's risky.
Yeah, I think at this moment, I think it was brought up earlier in the weekend as well that sometimes when you're pushed back into that corner and you have no other options, you're more prone to committing to and taking riskier decisions. And sometimes situations like this, they can really pay off.
Yeah, exactly. So you almost kind of wonder, was it worth guarding?
Right, exactly.
When you're at 1 damage, you kind of think, is it worth dropping the shield here? But it's still a 2-crit Vanguard. You don't want to just eat like 4 damage, but sometimes you just don't know.
Sri's hand looking somewhat sizable, not as big as we've seen some other Gandiva hands, but still not terrible. But we'll see if that's going to be enough here.
Yeah, not having the best harvest.
Not having the best harvest coming up huge, not getting that extra +2 from the retiring of the Yuika, of the Ramana. But here we get the Persona Ride, just deciding on what to discard here. Obviously not the Recycler, otherwise that would have been Shotgun for the discard. Discarding Sanctitude.
Ooh,
that is
very
brave.
interesting.
That is very brave. That is a PG just getting thrown out for a gem, basically. Hopefully maybe we'll see some better draws here. And maybe some Elfiras or something, because we have the restand. Okay, I was about to say we need some restanding pressure.
There we go.
Found it.
I have to think that this is like pitching that Sanctitude is probably just a show of like, it's saying final turn without saying final turn. You know what I mean? It's saying final turn, but subtly.
I will say something to note here. Best Harvest is the big turnaround for most Gandiva players that are playing into Ballista, since Ballista does usually draw really well, and not finding that best harvest in time, I think, is what's going to ultimately, in the end, hurt this, unless we see some heals, which is very possible, but it's really hard to deal with a big pressure turn and not having those extra draws come through here, because this is where you need them most.
Not having the Elviras on the board as well for this turn of being able to get a free cycle on those gems. But we are going to go straight into the attack step here, swinging with the Ophelia at 13k base with the Persona Ride power. That is going to be 23. And then let's not forget that at the end of the battle of the Ballista attacks, we are going to be able to use Ophelia's skill as well. However, we don't have anything in the center back row.
We can't. Yeah, we actually cannot restand Ophelia. So we can use the gem effect here, but this is a 4 attack turn. I don't know what's going on in the hand there, because you can actually call triggers. You don't mandatorily have to. You can bounce anything as long as it's not in order. Back to deck. As long as it can be called to the board, it can be sent back. So I'm not too sure what the decision thought process was here. But yes, because there's no center back row card, you cannot restand. Ophelia's effect is offline.
So going for the 30k there on the 30k there from the Ramana. So the first attack was easier to guard. It was going to be just a trigger to pass over. 30k is a bit bigger than just a trigger. Do we have that front trigger to break us to 33? And then after that comes out, we still have 2 more attacks. One from the Ballista, one from probably the Ophelia, just using the gems effect rather than her own effect there. Let's see what Sri will choose to do, because everything here has to be guarded.
Yes, being at 5 here, you do have to block everything, which is why I'm wondering what the thought process was behind not putting that center rearguard circle on the board. Is the thought that Nomad wasn't going to kill and decided to maybe hold off a turn? Maybe they only had triggers in hand and the only call was going to be a trigger, so decided to kind of keep it safe to deal with another Gandiva turn. Very, very different play from what you would normally see on a Persona turn.
There it is. There's the Willista. We're going to use the crossing Illumiraze effect there. Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and our choice of restand will be Ramana.
Also
I
interesting, so we're losing the bounce too here. The bounce will not go off, so that Ophelia will stay on the board, which means chances are it will be retired next turn.
Oh my! And then if 3 now has the best harvest, that is going to be a juicy best harvest there, because now we're going to have 3 different choices to retire from. The grade 2 will not be able to intercept. The grade 3 is the third Ophelia, going to be out of rotation. We hit 2 into damage. Going to actually choose to give it to the Ophelia that will not be able to restand. Nomad is unable to restand at the end of the battle. Nomad doesn't know about Ophelia. No.
Wait, that cannot. That is. We'll have to wait a little bit here, but it has to be the back row center circle specifically for that ability to go off. So we're gonna have to. Yeah, we're gonna have to bring that back.
Okay.
So that Ophelia is staying rested. Correct.
1 attack lost, wasted trigger power onto a rear guard that can no longer attack. Nomad, the nerves have gotten.
Yeah,
all we have left is
that's just
Ramana.
what can happen sometimes. After 2 days, a lot of rounds, a lot of different matches, a lot of mental fatigue. Sometimes it can just catch up with you without you even realizing it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's perfectly normal. There's a lot of mental thought process, a lot of, it is top. So it is top cut. So these things do
A lot of stress.
Yes, exactly.
1 last attack coming out. We see the PG. We know about the Persona Ride going into the Gandiva turn. Opponent is at 4 damage. We got the Persona Ride. We ripped it off the top as well. No best harvest at the very least. Choosing the grade 1, choosing the grade 2, presumably finds a best harvest off the top 5. 3, 0, 0, 3, and 2. So we at least get. Oh, we chose 3 and 2.
Wow.
This is cool. Yeah, there's still we have a couple other cards that because this is the Highway of Gandiva. There's other cards that you can call that can just instead of getting the draw, they just choose to retire something on the board instead. So now we got to think here. We're basically just a setup here. Try to get the multi-attack going. We have a lot of damage to work with. We're going to set up our bind. We're going to get ready. We did Persona here, so this is some big beefy numbers coming in. Where this is the Gandiva special here. The monster of a deck coming through.
Yep.
All right, not going to be able to see the same thing we saw last time of getting that overtrigger for that very big double Gandiva turn. However, I believe that we are at least 10 in bind now, which makes 20k to the front row in conjunction with the Persona Ride, 30k to the front row. That is insane. That's
imagine
big,
Persona
big,
riding
big numbers.
3 times in a turn, because that's essentially what we're looking at right here.
Yeah, exactly.
1 damage go through. Luckily for Nomad, no Alpha Carks to get the chain calls happening, unless that is an Alpha Cark in the back. They're going to pop up a new attack over. And it looks like that is indeed what is happening there.
Yep, getting a extra little swing here, which is may end up be one of the deciding factors in this final round here.
Yeah, but there might be a PG in hand that we did drop that Sanctitude. So this is looking a little scary. We've seen some PGs already be used. We did see a PG in Drive Check here, so we can opt to PG the Vanguard, which is usually the play, especially when you have this big of a front row board presence going on.
Exactly. So not going to get the 5 attacks, but still going to get a good number of attacks here. And I think with a 30k to the front row, every attack here, whatever you call down, even with that small hand, is going to be lethal. Going to force that PG out. Finds the Sanctitude. That's very good to see there. Also, the heal is live as well. Going to give us some buffer damage to play with in the upcoming turn if Nomad is able to survive this turn there, giving him power to the rear guard. That is already more than huge enough. Do we have another 2 PGs to live this turn? We did not get defensives. But do we have the cards in hand to guard?
Do we have the cards in hand to guard or the heal on top? At this point, either one is where you're going to be looking to make it through here. Oh, OT coming down to guard, it looks like.
I think we do have the PG here. I saw that. Yep, there it is.
All right, there we go.
See that double, the quoting the 2 cards in hand, getting ready. So we do survive and the Cerise hand is not the most healthy here. Do we have a Persona to potentially come back? We do have the persona, which is huge. This is huge because now we can get the gems back. We have another shot at cycling here. We do have one more chance here to potentially redeem the last turn here. So we have a top 5. Maybe grab something good here and just
Ophelia off the top.
Yeah,
Ophelia off the top.
Yeah, there we've already seen 3. Is she there? Oh, that.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh.
Ophelia.
Okay.
That's big. That's big. We have the cycle, which is also big. We have 3 damage to work with.
That's big. Okay, so we have
it active here.
Okay, so we have the Persona Ride, we have Ophelia, we have the Counterblast on play to give the extra 5k, so that's 15k to the front row. Ophelia is well going to get 15k. Willissa going to get 15k as well. All we need now is a card in the center column. Do not make the same mistake as you did last time, Nomad. We need that extra power.
This is huge here. So we have the restand, we have the 5 attacks, we have a 15k front row now, because this is probably the first time we've seen the cycler actually being used in a while. All we need is a back row, center, rear guard, and we're good. We can draw a little bit, that's fine. Just call 2 cards to the board, and we can end the game here. There is that is something that is numbers. We're working, we're cooking, we're in a good spot here. FYI, these are magic numbers too, so this is a really good. We're starting off with that 25k special. Ophelia's gonna be 20 on her own this time, resetting for an additional 15, and Yuika's effect will also go off here. So these are going to be very large numbers. Cerise still, I believe, at 5 damage over there. I'm not exactly sure, but I think that's 5. But if that's the case, everything still has to be blocked. The hand is smaller this time than it was last time.
Cerise sitting on a healthy 4 damage, so one of these attacks is able to be guarded. But don't. If there is an attack to take, I wouldn't take this one. If you can guard with the trigger here, guard with the trigger there, and then try and take a big damage without any crits on it. Like, this is hard, because I think this is where not finding the best harvest is coming up huge right now.
Absolutely. That's definitely putting a very huge dent in Sri's game plan here, because that hand would have had at least 2 or 3 more cards if that best harvest would have been able to come up.
All right. Thinking on what to guard there. Down to the wire. Both players are pretty much gassed out. We saw Nomad have to call triggers down to ensure that Ophelia be able to get that restand out. Sri calling over the board just to try and make as big numbers as possible to try and close out that game. Unable to do so because of the double PG, the OT2 guard. Is Sri going to be able to show the same defense that Nomad was able to show?
Going to be difficult for sure. Definitely taking a moment, trying to think it over, weighing all the options. Oh, seems in between a couple of decisions here. Looks like it's dropping a heal and intercepting. Taking that Ophelia swing, and it doesn't look like we got a defensive either.
Okay. There's the sectitude that we did get drove check. 1 drive, no crit. Ooh. Okay, so if our hand isn't healthy enough, there is the option for a 6 damage heal, but 2 more attacks coming out there.
It's going to be tricky. Not impossible, but very, very difficult.
The Belcher Bland not going to be very big. That will be guardable if there is 1 PG, 1 trigger can walk through this turn safely. Belcher Band going to be able to get guarded with 1 trigger if it's 15, and then going to be able to discard the PG for free if it is. Going to swing with the Belcher Band first. What is the choice here, Sri? 2 cards left in hand.
Is it 2 PGs? If it's not 2 PGs, this might be a bank on a 6 damage right here.
Yep. It seems like it may not be, because I feel like if you have the 2 PGs, you're dropping them, no hesitation.
Exactly. I mean, there is a shot at guarding. That number is smaller. The Ophelia is huge. Oh, there's the PG.
There's a PG.
Is there another PG?
PG. 6
It's
damage.
Top.
I don't think was that. I don't
I
think that was a
that's
heel.
game.
don't
I think
it
that's
was heel.
game.
It was
That's
game.
game.
It was-
That
That's
is
game.
game.
That's game.
Our new champion. We have Nomad taking it all the way through to first
Nomad.
place.
Wow. Through the nerves, through the misplays, able
Wow.
to scratch and claw and climb
Yeah.
right back into that winner seat. Wow, what a tumultuous final round there.
Yeah. That was nerve-wracking, but in a good way. That made it
Very,
interesting,
very
right?
quite the nail biter for sure.
That was a nail biter. That was indeed a nail biter. Whew.
We asked for a final game. We asked for a final game where we were able to completely see both players reach their utmost potential, and we did see it. So, as shocked as I am at the outcome of this game, despite the misplay, being able to crawl back into the game just because we had enough cards to guard, maybe that's why we didn't call anything to the back row, because everything there was there to guard the upcoming turn from Gendiva. Maybe that is why we were able to sneak out that win on Nomad's side. My goodness, what a nail biter. I am so tense and now I'm so relaxed. Congratulations to Nomad for winning BRO 2023. And very good run by Sri as well to bring Gendiva. Something that people have said has been copium, like, oh, the hand is fake. I was like, I don't think so. I think that deck still has the chops it needs to get. So I am so proud of both players. I'm so proud to be able to have both players show their skill, show the utmost potential of both of these decks on stream for us. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Very, very, very good finals.
Absolutely. I think that also just goes to show too, never give up. Even if things look unlikely, even if things look a little bit tight, even if you made a mistake, don't give up, because who knows what can happen.
Exactly. I'm still trying to, I'm just processing. Yeah, I have like nothing to say because I'm just like processing
going
what
through
just
it, going through it.
Yeah,
Yep.
going through the motions. Whew.
It was definitely a lot. Absolute roller coaster there.
Yeah, it was crazy to see all that. And also, again, just I'm not gonna lie, I actually really like the fact that our finals was Gandivo versus Ballista, because it is the two strongest decks in the format. Way I view it, at least for the English side of things, I do think those are the two top decks that you want to constantly think about in your head, and be able to actually see them battle it out for the finals place was just really awesome to see.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm shook.
Yeah. Shook silent.
Yeah, we saw the excitement.
Like right now, like I want to like talk about like more about the game, like analyze the game a bit more down, but like those last two turns down to the wire, nail biters. So like I'm right here, like now I'm like kind of cooled down. I want to think what was one of the turning points of the game, because I think we were talking behind the scenes, Orange, and I think that there was a chance that Nomad could have just won a turn ahead of time if we didn't get that small mishap, because that would have been the 5 attacks. We also got the Persona right that turn. Ophelia was already huge. And I wonder if at that point the game was already spelt out. Yeah. And I wonder if the game was already spelled at that point. And I'm wondering, if I was in Sri's seat, what could I have done instead to try and make it so, to try and capitalize on that misplay and try and win out the game from that way. And I think the majority, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because I was like in shock, but that very last turn that Sri had, did we get the 5 attacks from Gandiva that we needed? Or was it only 4?
I think it was 4, and keep in mind that Nomad had 3 PGs, I think, throughout the whole game. So 1 was given away. I think Nomad actually drew to all 4, because we saw the Sanction 2 go away. We saw the double perfect guard happen on Sri's turn as well. There might have even been a 4th PG somewhere in there. It was so I think the PGs really helped in that situation. But I don't recall there being a 5th attack, if I remember correctly. There was a lot happening there after that crazy ballista turn. It was kind of hard to like stabilize after that. But I think overall those PGs was like the saving grace, and also it made more sense why the Sanctitude went away, because in that situation the Sanctitude is a mandatory discard, whereas the regular PGs, if you have a small hand, you can actually just you don't have to discard anymore. So they're essentially the better targets to have in hand.
Absolutely. Now, as we know now, Nomad is our champion for Bushiroad Rumble Online 2023 for the standard format in NA. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket to see their journey as they breeze through top 8. So at the bottom there, we saw Nomad versus Casey Alex getting the win there. That was the Willista Mirror. And two Willista Mirrors from Nomad side of things. Nomad versus Casey Alex, Nomad versus Mana, which is we also know was Willista. And finally into the finals, Nomad versus 3 to bring you the narrative of what is the format as it is today. Gandiva versus Willista. Wow, what a journey from our competitors themselves. What else can we say except despite the formats being just Willista and Gandiva, I was happy to see a lot of strong plays from every person we saw on stream.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah, it's been a very eventful weekend. We got to see a fair amount of diversity over Swiss yesterday, and today we saw all of what we expected to kind of rise to the top. Those 5 Willistas, but to see at least one Gandiva make it all the way to the end, being that brave little soldier for the Dragon Empire there, making it to the end. Fortunately, couldn't clinch it at the end, but you know what? Still very well fought on all sides.
Yeah, exactly. Overall, a very good performance for everyone. As we saw a lot of nerves come through at top 8. I can understand that. I've been in that position myself. Nerves can really get to you. The mental state of competitive competition like this can be really, really brutal. So, but really proud of everyone. I'm just really happy to see everything. Can't wait for the interview. Very excited.
Absolutely. I think there's a few questions I got to ask Nomad about as well. I know that Orange, when you said that you have been playing Willista as well, there's a card that you mentioned that most people are not running, but is something that people should be running. Do you want to go ahead and like talk more about that here?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a matter of should, it's a matter of like personal desire. It's a card called Trixie. She basically lets you look at top 5 for ballistas, and especially since the deck relies on personas so much, sometimes you just don't find ballistas. So that is like your other hope chance. You can always call her off the top 5, put her behind, and sometimes you can even cheese out a ballista into soul. So sometimes you'll see the ballista and you can use her ability to put it to soul, so you have the 5 attacks, and that way you don't have to stress out so much about the persona. It basically gives you another out, and she's not like a mandatory 4 or anything like that, but sometimes 1 or 2 copies can be the saving grace between like a breaking game and a not breaking game. But on the other hand, you're lowering the consistency of what the deck itself does to add in the searchers. So I like the card. I personally have seen a couple lists here, not a lot of lists, but there actually is quite a few lists out there that actually do run Trixie. Some run at 1, some run at 2, kind of just jumps around. But overall, it's a really good addition, I think, to the deck, to those that want to have less of those bad situations come through where the deck starts really hurting you and going against you.
Well, you will have the chance to ask Nomad about that choice regardless once we get to the player interview. But first, we are going to take you guys all to a short break, get the player interview set up, and we will have on camera for you guys all the winner of Bushiroad 2023, Nomad themselves. We'll see you soon.
Yep. Hello and welcome back. We have here today with us our first place champion, Nomad. Hi, welcome in.
Hi, thank you.
Hey, very welcome. Congratulations on your win. You are first place for D Format NA. How are you feeling today?
I'm pretty excited.
Oh, that's awesome. It's great. So we're gonna go through a couple questions here. I will start us off, and then we'll do 2 questions each, and we'll just kind of just ask about your experience here. So I'll start us off. I always like to start with this question: what made you decide Ballista was the choice?
So I was actually playing Gandiva first,
Hmm.
but I usually play a different deck than my roommate, and he wanted to play Gandiva, so I just kind of switched to Ballista, and we were
Gotcha.
able to pick up the pieces for pretty cheap.
That's good.
So I couldn't complain, and it's a good deck. And it proved it with this showing, so I can't complain.
That is a very strong deck. One of the best in the format, actually. And the other one was
Yeah,
Gandiva as a choice. So you were choosing between two very, very good
I,
decks, honestly.
yeah, I usually stay with the meta, but you know.
Absolutely. So my question for you is tell not really a question, but tell me about your history of Cardfight Vanguard. When did you start? How did you progress, and how did you end up here now as as the standard champion for Bureau? What was your training regimen? It sounded like you had a roommate. Did you play test with your roommate a lot?
Yeah, I almost every night, we play test a lot. I don't go to locals as much as I should. Maybe that's something that'll change, but I definitely just enjoy playing, and I gotta credit my roommate. He's just shown me everything with the game, and he introduced me to it like 5, 6 years. It was whenever Limit Break was going on. That's whenever I came
Cool.
into the game. And played through Legion, played through Stride, kind of stopped at the end of Stride for a little bit, but then they came out with V, so I played V, and then played Standard, and I love the state of the game. I love Standard. I like the Legion and Stride a lot, but I do love Standard more than anything. I got to be honest.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I was just playing with him like almost every night has definitely gotten me very far.
Yeah, definitely can't underestimate regular practice and training for sure. For me, I'm kind of wondering, it's been a lot of rounds, a lot of games played over the last 2 days. Did you have like a specific match or a moment over the last 2 days that stands out to you as something that you look back as like a favorite kind of like highlight over the last 2 days?
I hit my trigger once,
Oh,
so
okay.
that was a highlight. And I actually just teched it in. It was the red, the one that stands. I had the original one, and I just got that right before the tourney. So it's the first time I ever hit it. So I guess that stands out. Um, but I don't know. They're pretty smooth games. I was so fortunate with a lot of my draws drawing into my pieces. So I'm just very surprised from that. And the only game I lost was to a 6 damage heal. So you know.
Hey, that's
Very.
Vanguard. That's how it goes.
Yeah. Sometimes those 6 damage heals, they they bite you. You're like, oh no, I had
It
game.
came back and top 4, I hit a 6 damage heal and it won me the game.
Give it
Hey,
and take it.
there you go. Exactly. It's a yin yang system here. I was gonna ask, you mentioned you tested with your roommates and stuff like that. Do you have like a locals? Do you test anywhere else? Like what's that like?
Yeah, we do have a locals. I play out of Springfield, Missouri, so we have it in the mall. So yeah.
Oh, interesting.
But it kind of moves around in our city. The
Oh,
locals do
that's so
different shops.
different from what I'm used to. That's pretty cool.
So my question for you now is: in your deck, you have 50 cards. What is the one card that you would consider the MVP for this weekend, barring the overtrigger, of course?
So going into this tournament, I was really testing 3 of the order, and I think it put in a lot more work than I thought it was going to. I thought it was kinda like a dead card later on, but there's so many times that I wasn't able to Persona Ride, and I could use that
Mm.
order just to keep playing the game and getting that advantage, and it really just carried. So that order, not taking that out was insane. Also, because it gives you soul when you draw it right off the bat, so you can just use it all the time, and that order really helped out a lot.
I think that's really good insight. I think yesterday I was talking about it too, that I feel like the reason why Willista is such a big name now is that that order, counting as both names, basically doubles all of your effects since you get both effects now.
Also in top eight, our first round of top 8, I threw the grade 3 into Soul, even though I was going first, and I Persona Road, was able to Soul Blast 1-3, and then couldn't Persona Road the next turn, but I drew the order so I could play the order, and then still had another 3 in Soul. That's the first time that interaction has ever happened for me. So that was kind of standout moment.
Very cool. And I guess just lastly here, you know, you're coming into this tournament. You're playing Willista, kind of like some people kind of like see like the boogeyman of the format, the one of the strongest decks. But despite playing such a powerful deck, was there any specific matchup that you were kind of worried about coming into? Something that you were kind of like hoping to avoid at all costs potentially over the last 2 days?
I mean, I play tested Gandiva a ton, but I still just don't ever want to play the deck. I've not played the mirror match till this tournament, so it was interesting to see, but I won every game, so it was pretty smooth.
Hey, there you go. Can't argue with that at all.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. Again, congratulations on that first place victory. You are
Bravo.
the champion for the NA side. So very awesome stuff. It was a pleasure having you here with us with Toku and Tai. So thank you again for joining joining us today, Nomad. And again, congratulations.
Of course, thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure.
All
Right,
I
thank
think I'll
you.
wrap it up. Yeah.
Go have your celebratory games with your
Yeah.
roommate. Tell them the good news. Give them the shout out as well. And I think that's the main thing. Yeah. Before we have you head on out, do you have any shout outs?
True. Yeah.
Yeah. Alan Smith, my roommate, of course. Besides, he's just done so much for me, and he's an amazing person. So my credit goes to him.
Hey man, gotta shout out the homie.
Yep.
Heck yeah.
All right, Alan, I see you in chat. So you hear that? No. So you hear that, Alan? Nomad gave you a shout out. So y'all have some fun later tonight. Play some good Vanguard. And thank you so much for joining us here, Nomad.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Next time.
And that's it.
We did it.
Bushiroad Rumble 2023 standard.
Another one in the bag.
Complete. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. Thank you everyone for playing. Thank you the judges. Thank you for staying with us through these tough times, especially as we're getting used to newer programs and such. And we have like a new TO as well. Last time we had another one. This time we have Vision. So shout outs to Vision. Shout outs to their judging staff. Shout outs to their background staff. They were so helpful as well. And definitely shout out to the judges as well. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes to make BRO such a reality and such a success for everyone every weekend, be it the NA side, be it the AO side, be the EU side. So whenever you come out to these, just be very thankful. And we are also very thankful as to what happens behind the scenes to make this happen. Yep. Orange, do you have any shout outs before we head out?
Yeah, shout out to everybody that's been supporting me, supporting the stream, supporting this whole event. I definitely give a big shout out to the people in the background. They've been doing a lot of work to keep this running. There's a lot of stuff in the background going on to make sure this is a smooth process. So a big shout outs to them, putting in all the hard work. Shout out to Bushiroad for being able to make this happen, running these events. They are online, so it's a little different, and going through all the motions, everything has been really amazing. I really don't have much else. I'm just really happy that everyone was here today with me. Really happy to you guys as well, carrying through as casters as well. Do not forget, we also have Premium Bureau happening November 18th and 19th, so stay tuned for that. We do have the history collection in mind, so this will be a completely different format for a lot of people. We do have VCS happening between all of it, so it's gonna be a lot of premium love going around. So don't forget about that. Very exciting stuff. Ty?
Yeah, so I gotta echo a lot of what you said about shouting out everyone behind the scenes, because I don't think it can be understated how much goes on behind the scenes. There are a lot of moving parts that go into making these tournaments happen, and we get to sit here and look pretty for the most part. So I'm very
Yeah.
appreciative that they can kind of facilitate us that and make us look and sound good,
Yep.
because there's a lot that kind of goes on. Very appreciative of that. And yeah, like you mentioned too, we'll be back in November. We've kind of been spacing out these BROs. We'll be back for premium. That's what I'm really excited for. Very, very excited for the premium format. Very much enjoyed standard.
Yeah.
Enjoyed V premium when I casted that more than I thought I would. But now we're getting into what excites me the most. So looking very much forward to that. And I guess I also want to shout out BCSs. BCSs are going on too. If you weren't able to kind of get any sort of entered into BRO this weekend, there's all kinds of other tournaments going on. If you're mostly a standard player, there's plenty of opportunities. So look forward to seeing you guys again for BRO, and look forward to seeing maybe some of you at some of these BCSs coming up too. Should be a pretty fun time.
Yeah.
In any case, we have been your co-commentators for this weekend of Bushiroad Rumble Online 2023. My name is Toku, aka Tony, aka Yellow Card CZG. I am joined by my lovely
Outer Orange, AK Outer Orange, AK Outer Orange. You can find me on all my medias as Outer Orange, and that doesn't change. So yeah, that's me. Thank you so much. And yeah, we
the
have-
incredibly handsome.
Oh, well,
this is
thank you. TIE Fighter. You can call me TIE Fighter. If you can just follow my very corrupted spelling of TIE Fighter, look me up on anything if you care to. You'll find me there. I stream sometimes. Maybe stop in and say hi. I'll say hi back. I promise.
And we have been your casters. Thank you so much for sticking with us for this weekend. We are out of here. Let's have a bro fist.
Bro fist.